Good evening, everybody. It's 7:03, and the first meeting of the Village of Lions Bay Council to order. The public notice of the meeting has been given, and a quorum is present, so I declare the meeting duly constituted. First order of business is acceptance of the agenda. Can I have a motion? Thank you. Second, any changes? Councillor Abbott?
Just a question on the audit report. So that's in the closed part of the meeting. I was just wondering sort of why that was, and the comment to the front page of the first page of the report that says council and they should not be this should not be distributed without prior consent. So we have actually sent this out to the village already, correct? It was in the package that went out.
The presentation isn't enclosed. It's just after the presentation. There'll just be a small portion that goes to closed.
Oh, so it's a discussion after.
Yeah.
So the presentation itself is not closed.
And then there'll be a full discussion as well. And then just for best practices, you'll go to close just for a short
Gotcha.
period in case there's
Okay.
So the whole presentation. Oh yeah,
is open.
absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely.
That was my question. Thank you.
Except for 4 feet around you where it'll be closed. Okay, any other changes, Councillor Abbott?
Yeah, I'd like to make one other, first change to the agenda. On page 8, reports, section 8, staff 5, I would ask if it's possible if that could be removed to after council number 1, Councillor Abbott, because I feel that discussion around communications should be had ahead of the discussion about that policy. The high level discussion first.
So the ask is to,
Why don't we just take Councillor Abbott's letter and move it up
Either way.
to be the new
5.
5 and push my report
Okay.
to 6?
Are you fine with that, Councillor Abbott?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, 5 and you're 6. And we say there. All right, that's good. You have that, Shauna?
Yes.
And any other additions? I have 2. Nope. My 2 are on the mayor's report, which is 8B, new edition 5, and I will do events committee / volunteer week, and 6 village update articles. Any other changes? All in favor? Unanimous, thank you. And we are good to go. Public participation. Anybody? You have 2 minutes. Nope. Going. No public participation. We will go to the delegation part, which is to welcome Bill Cox, partner BDO Dunwoody, and his colleague Paul Fripp. Gentlemen, you have the floor.
Is it still 1, 2, 3, 4?
No, 5, 6, 7, 8.
So I guess we'll need to make sure we keep it moving.
You have to keep moving.
Okay. Thank you. What we thought we'd do, if it was appropriate, was to spend a couple of minutes going through the financial statements prepared by management that we have a couple of comments on, and then speak to our letter for a few minutes. Is we have time for that? No more than 90 minutes max. No, probably 10, 15 minutes altogether, if that's appropriate. So what I've done, Pam has put on her computer here this is where I pay the price for being an Apple guy. She's put the draft financials on the screen so we can take a look. I'm sure there's a way to zoom in. Oh, there it is. So what I did on my copy is just circle a couple of things of interest that I thought I would speak to. We have a good sense of the general picture. Of course, Pam has every single number memorized, probably every transaction during the year. So she'll fill in any details. And feel free to ask any questions. Here. I will mention this page which we think is the most important. This is our audit report. We are super excited this year because, I don't know if you noticed, but this report goes on for a page and a half. There's a new format. This is a worldwide auditor change, so all auditors across the world are rejoicing. New format to the audit, how the standard audit report reads. This is what it looks like. It really doesn't substantially say anything different. The important part is the second paragraph that says, in our opinion, the financial statements present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the village at December 31, 2018, and its results of operations, changes in net financial assets and cash flows, in accordance with Canadian public sector accounting standards, which is what you have to use. So that's the key. So that wording is called a clean audit opinion. You'll notice when you get to the end here, it's not signed, it still says draft. That's purposely done because our audit is only 99% complete, and we don't do that last 1% until council approves the financial statements, which might happen today. If that happens, then the auditors have to go away and we finish what we call our subsequent events work, because we're responsible for any disclosures, even though the year end is December 31st, if anything material happens after then, until the date of approval of the financial statements, the financials would have to have a note that said subsequent to the year end, whatever big event happened. Usually it's a lawsuit or something like that, so hopefully not, but we do have that responsibility, so that's why we don't sign this off until council approval of the financials. But as I say, we've done 99% of our work, and we are positive we will have a clean audit opinion when all is said and done. So then we get into the numbers here. And I just circled a couple of things on each page to speak to. This page here, the statement of financial position, this is a snapshot of where you were at the end of December 31st, all your balances and all your accounts. I always start this at the bottom of the page there where it says accumulated surplus, 21,177,608 this year. That sounds like a big number, and because it has the word surplus in it, which is terminology that is recommended by the accounting standard setters, but personally I don't like it. Surplus sounds like there's a drawer in Pam's desk that has $21 million in it. That's not the case. The vast majority of those funds are already spent on infrastructure. And if we see if I can fast forward to note 11 here, there's a note that breaks down good print. Okay. Well, it should be in your package.
Yeah, it's on, in your package, it's on page 47 of 166 in the package.
So that breaks down that 21 million and shows that the vast majority of that is something called invested intangible capital assets. That's what you spent on infrastructure. So the cash is gone. It's already spent on the important infrastructure in the village. But it hasn't been expensed yet because for accounting purposes, we expense that over the life of the underlying assets, which for some of those assets can be quite a many years. So it still shows in this thing called surplus, but it's already spent. I think that's, if you're not an accountant, that may sound a little confusing, but I think the biggest takeaway is that's not all surplus money you can spend. So you have a big amount invested in tangible capital assets. Then you have your reserve fund. So these are amounts that council has put aside for specific purposes. And then the unrestricted amounts are basically your working capital. You always have to have some working capital to account for the ups and downs and timings of revenues and expenses over the year. And that unrestricted surplus is sort of your working capital / emergency money. So when you look at that note, you can see you're not quite as wealthy as the statement of financial position might lead you to believe. So the other things that I circled on the statement of financial position is this line right in the middle of the page, or middle of the screen there, net financial assets. $781,000 this year, $228,000 last year. This is a line that you don't see. If you're looking at a corporate financial statement, for example, you don't see anything called net financial assets. This is a special indicator only done on government financial statements, thought by the standard setters to be a good item to sort of track the trend of and see how that's looking to assess the financial health of a local government. So what that is made up of is all your financial assets, which are, these are things that will turn into, they're either cash or will turn into cash, as opposed to the infrastructure, which is already a hard asset. So these are the assets that are cash or will turn into cash, minus all the liabilities that you accrued until the end of the year. So basically, if you cashed everything in, paid off all your debts, you'd have $781,000 left over in a positive position, and improved from the $228,000 last year. So modest amount, but good to see it trending up in that direction. Two other things I circled on this page. One, just the top of the page, the cash and cash equivalents. It's always good to ensure that there is some money in the bank and available to spend, and that also covers your reserve fund monies, which are there. So healthy balance there, a little bit higher than last year. And the other thing I circled, which is not something you see all the time, and that's this assets held for sale land. So because this is, oh, there's a note that goes with that as well. Let's see if I can flip to that. Because this is at December 31st.
Page 12, Bill.
Oh, there we go. So, because this is at December 31st, it's before the April 2019 close on that first property. So as you can see there, that's technically a subsequent event. It says the land sold in April 2019 with a gain of 1.8 million. So that will be recorded in the 2019 year because that's when it occurred. So there was that parcel that was still there until April, plus the other parcel which council is aware of that has a book value of $273,000. So that's not the fair value, or that's not what you'll get for that, but it goes on the books at the cost value. So that's not something that's always there, but this year it is there because of those two parcels. And that was all I circled on this page for myself and sort of the unusual different items. Pam, was there anything else that you wanted to point out?
No, it was just the assets held for sale, which you've already discussed.
Then I might skip to the next page unless somebody else had any comments or questions. I don't see any. So let's go to the statement of operations, which is the next page. So this is the results for the year as compared to the first page, which is the overall balances. This is just how you did in the last year, which is the middle column. The right column is a comparative to 2017 for information. And the first column is the financial plan or the budget. So you can see how you compared to budget, to what your plan was. So here, first place I always look to when I'm looking at this sort of statement is the annual surplus for the year. That's the third from the bottom line there. So the actuals are the middle column, 108,000. So you broke even and actually came out ahead $108,000. Heck of a lot less though than the 4.8 million that was budgeted for. And you can see this line here where I'm putting the cursor. cursor. And that's really because of largely because of the timing of that sale of the parcel. Was budgeted to have closed in 2018, it actually was April 2019. So you had 3.1 million in the budget and actual is 0 because it did not happen in the year. So that's the biggest contributor to the difference between the budgeted surplus and what the actual was. So I made note of that. Another contributor to that is this line here called government transfers, where there's 2.6 million budgeted and the actual is 573. And a good chunk of that is due to potential capital transfers. So this next page, which we'll come to in a second, statement of change in net financial assets, this shows the expenditure on tangible capital assets. So it was budgeted 2.7 and the actual was only 312. So we see the exact, that's the expense side. The revenue side, we see the exact opposite thing. So it's really just less capital than was planned, is the reason for the variance there. And other than those two sort of major differences, most of the other line items are, as you can see, they're fairly comparable to what was planned in the budget. All the expenses coming in under budget, close to budget and a little bit under. So pretty close to as was planned, except for those unusual events. So that was all I circled there. Anything else, Pam, we should make note of?
I was just going to mention that the capital, that was the revenue was a clean water, wastewater, the clean water grant and the water tank. And the project got delayed. We had planned to finish that project that year, so that's why the budget was so high. And then the offsetting is the revenue, like we thought we would be getting the revenue from the grant. So it's just a delay, because it does look a bit unusual. Normally we aren't off budget that much when we budget capital.
Okay.
Bill?
Yes, go ahead.
Just noticing, got a typo on page 12 of the report, page 40 of 166. Under developer deposits, it refers to bylaw 330. That should be 234 or 497. So I'm just double checking here to see. I think it should be the fees bylaw. And perhaps there was an old fees bylaw that was in your system or something.
Oh, okay, great. So we will, thank you, we'll make that correction. I think there was a couple of other minor typos that Pam noticed today, which will get cleaned up as well.
Mm-hmm. And I'll discuss those when we do the approval of the
Okay.
financial statements, yeah.
Did you have that one already, Pam?
No, didn't have that one, thanks.
Okay, so after the income statement page, we'll go much faster because we start to get into a lot of the county required schedules that don't give that much information. This page here, called Statement of Change in Net Financial Assets, is a sort of a reconciliation page. It doesn't give you much information other than what you budgeted to spend and what you actually spent on capital, the second line there, which we talked about already. So other than that, there's not really much information of value there. Then we get to the cash flow statement, which is useful from an overall point of view, from the subtotals point of view. The individual lines that are really reconciliation, they don't really tell you much, but the subtotals do. So there's different sections here. The first one's called operating transactions, and this says that the operating transactions, which is collecting taxes and paying salaries and all those regular operating things, they generated a net cash amount of $534,000. And what was that used for? Well, $312,000, this middle section called capital, $312,000 of that was spent on capital. And in the financing section, $154,000 was spent to repay debt, with the net result of an increase in cash of $68,000. So that does, from a total point of view, does sort of give some good information, but individual lines not quite as important. Following that, we get into county policies and notes. Not that much of interest in here. For the most part, the wording is pretty well exactly the same as last year, just with updated numbers. We talked about note 1 already, which was the property sale. I always think note 7, I think it's note 7, let's see. Oh, that's where we cut off. Note 7 is.
It's on page 44 of 166.
Contingent liabilities and contractual obligations. I always think this is a good note that you should take a read at, because this sort of tells you any unique things that are going on, or any guarantees that the village might have made, anything like that. Now, there isn't really anything that exciting in this particular year, but I still think it's a good one, just that you should make a point of reading. The things that are in here are somewhat standard and would apply to most municipalities in BC. All municipalities belong to the regional district, and there's joint and several guarantees in the regional district. So if the City of Vancouver and the City of Burnaby go bankrupt, you can be on the hook for all their expenses. I don't even want to figure out what that works out to on a per capita basis, but it would be very high. However, I don't think that's very likely. You belong to the Municipal Insurance Association, similar deal where that's a group thing and everybody is responsible. There's ECOM for the police dispatch service in the Lower Mainland. There's the Municipal Finance Authority, where all local governments other than the City of Vancouver are required by law to get their funding from, any long-term debt from. So that's, those are all sort of normal things. The last one in regard to litigation is also sort of a standard thing. There's always tends to be some minor claims in process from time to time at any local government. So this note here is a somewhat general note, just saying, yes, from time to time there is maybe some legal matters. There's insurance that covers that. From an audit point of view, we communicate with the lawyers to see what's on their plate and what they're concerned about, and nothing of material interest came back from those discussions with the lawyers. So there isn't anything unique or unusual this year, but as I say, it's a good note to, as a rule, take a look at. Maybe the last thing that I like to point out, we can't get this on the screen the way it's printed, but this would be Schedule 1, called Combined Statement of Operations by Segment.
It's on page 49.
49. It's required that the information, this is the same information that's on the Statement of Operations, which we looked at on a consolidated basis. It's required by accounting standards that that information also be broken up and shown by segment, which is what this is. And I think there's some useful information usually in this section. So all the revenues and expenses are divided up amongst the different segments. The first column is general government, and that shows a large annual surplus for the year, which makes it sound wonderful, but that's really because that's where the tax revenue comes in. So general government gets the tax revenue in. And then the other functions sort of show, for lack of a better term, probably is not politically correct, but to say it's sort of the subsidy that the other areas get from general government taxation, protection, public works, solid waste, planning, and parks and rec. So you can see by looking at the bottom line there, for example, protective services have a deficit of 200-some-odd thousand. That means they're drawing on general taxation to fund that. So think that can be good information, especially if you're looking at it compared year over year. Then over on the sort of right half of the page, we have the water utility and the sewer utility, which should sort of stand on their own. Sewer, very close to break-even, small loss, and water with a bit of a surplus this year. So the utility funds sort of stand on their own, and that surplus accumulates if there's a surplus in the year, and gets drawn down if there's expenses in those funds in the year that would cause that to draw down. So I just think this is good information to see it sort of sliced and diced in that regard. And that was all my circle in terms of highlights to talk to on the financials. Happy to talk further or delegate to Pam or whatever is appropriate. Is there any other comments or thoughts on the financial sticks, or Pam, anything you wanted to bring forward?
No, I didn't have anything. Can answer any questions. If anyone have any questions about the financial statements?
So the plan versus actual, again, government transfer. So this is once again the grant that we got. Is that the grant that we didn't get?
What page?
Sorry, the same page we were just talking about.
Yeah, yes, that would be
It
the
was the grant that didn't happen. It's
Yes.
going to happen this year.
delayed, right?
Yes, sorry, it's the clean water grant. We only get the money when we claim it, and because we hadn't started work on the water tank, the whole thing's been delayed.
And then sort of a few lines down below that, you got in the financial plan, we had a loss on disposable tangible assets of 3 million, and the actual was nothing. So
Oh,
what
yes,
was that about?
that actually should say gain, so there's another type of.
Oh.
No, there's a loss in the comparative.
So it should be gain.
So it should be a gain in the current year. So
Yeah.
that was because the lot sale that closed in
49.
April 2019 had been budgeted to happen in 2018.
And we actually had 2 properties budgeted in there, so it's not just the one that sold.
And
the
we had,
2
we had a
properties.
much higher value at that time, well, a higher value at that
Mhm.
time. So, dramatic.
Any other comments or questions?
2, Bill. One, which is on, I guess, on the statement of financial position. It's a small question. I'm not sure besides the question is, it's to do with sick, overtime, wellness, and vacation payable. It's gone up $41,000. It's just, why is that? I mean, it's a liability that's a real deal. It's just, it seems like, why would it go, our staff haven't changed?
Yeah, actually, I don't
Yeah,
recall.
it's,
So the
well,
HT?
basically it's the sick, so it's actually because our staff don't take a lot of sick time. And
Thank you.
we accrue the sick time.
Okay.
And that will be spoken to additionally when we get into the management report about
Okay.
that liability. And there's also vacation, if not everyone takes their vacation. So I wouldn't say it's a good thing, but when that goes up, it means that staff aren't
It's-
taking the sick
so
time that
it's-
they're earning per their contract.
It's the unpaid piece, okay? Thank you. And a second one, and this is, if I could get you to provide your view on the following statement. We have a sewer fund, and there is approximately a $212,000 sewer surplus in the fund. And with regards to revenue and expenses from 1983 to 2018, records prior to 2009, which I understand is when our current accounting software was installed, those records are in storage. And the records from the 1980s are manual. It would appear it'd be very challenging and time-consuming to go through the archived records to determine a number that we already have, that is the accumulated sewer surplus. The total revenue collected since 1983, less the expenses incurred for the maintenance of the sewer treatment plant, is $212,000 about. The annual revenue and expenses have been audited by an external auditor each and every year since 1983. While auditors may change, a high professional standard has been in place since 1983. Do you have faith in the integrity of the sewer surplus?
Yes, I think I understood the question. So as you said, whatever the balance is at the end of one particular fiscal year, December 31st, is the opening balance for the next year, and then the sewer, or whatever fund you're looking at, revenues get added in for the next year minus expenses. So that's a continual, ongoing number. So what is there now would represent the cumulative, which is what you said, from 83 till now, in agreement with the audited financial statements for all those years. So each of those years was audited, that was the balance, and it's carried forward.
Thank you.
So, yeah.
It's about the
There's no other way-
integrity.
There's no other way to slice or dice it.
Yeah.
That would be a perfect answer. Any other questions? Golden opportunity here.
We can talk about accounting standards, that's all.
You can't go wrong with that.
I was got a question if we go back into note 5, long-term debt. So some of this stuff goes back, like at the bottom of the page, loan authorization by from 2006. So is this balance still available to us, or?
Well, no,
Is
it's
it
being
just a case-
spent, and now we're paying it back. So basically, we borrowed that money in 2005 per the bylaw, and it forms part of our liability. So we would have used that money in the first few years, just like the money we're borrowing for the water tank. And hopefully, within a year, the water tank will be installed and it will be paid for, but then we'll continue to pay the money. Kind of like when you buy your house. You have your house, but then you continue to pay for it over the length of your mortgage.
Okay. So I'm confusing myself with the word balance outstanding under this bylaw.
But that's the
Balance
unpaid
owed.
amount.
Balance owed.
Balance owed.
Okay.
There is one
accounting
loan
issue.
bylaw that has some unissued amounts attached to it, right?
Yes, that's correct. That would be the loan authorization bylaw we just did for the $3 million. And so far, we've only drawn about $460,000 from that for the water tank.
Yeah.
But it's available to us. If we're successful with the grants that are outstanding right now, then we would also borrow against that same bylaw.
Any other questions? Well, it appears Mr. Cox and Mr. Fripp have got off easily before we go in camera.
So I think you have your audit report
Yes,
as
should we,
well.
should we go through that in
Okay.
open, I think, right?
Yep.
Yes, okay. So I'm gonna give the 30,000 foot level view, and then Paul's gonna hit some highlights of our report. The big picture, as I said earlier, is we are planning to issue a clean opinion, a clean audit opinion, which is good. That means all our testing worked out, we had access to all the information we needed. We got all the questions back from staff, from lawyers. So it's sort of a good news story that Paul will go into some of the highlights.
Unfortunately, it doesn't look like this document translated either.
Oh.
So we'll just, we'll start on, I have page 3 of the audit results report, which is the summary page.
What's in the reading?
The agenda, page 9 of 166.
Page 9 of
I just
166.
went onto the L drive and we just went onto the L drive and opened it. It's fine on my computer.
It's where we get into the really exciting stuff.
Access the internet, put the agenda up there.
It's in the cloud.
Yeah, exactly. So
We just went on to
as
the
Bill
L drive.
mentioned, as he was reviewing the audit report, that we anticipate providing a modified audit opinion. The wording of that report reads that, in our opinion, the financial statements present fairly in all material respects. So that raises, within that is the key construct of materiality. Our audit isn't conducted to the penny. There is a margin of error applied, and that is the concept of materiality. Putting it another way, materiality in our world, in our lens, is the dollar value that, if an error existed in the financial statement, could change the decision of one of the decision makers based on the financial statements. The materiality level used for the audit was $70,000, and that was communicated in our audit planning letter and is is unchanged in the final results. Uh-huh. That's okay. Moving forward to page 6 of the report, if you look at the bottom there, audit findings.
Oh.
There we go. Just want to walk everybody through a couple of the key audit areas.
We're on page 6.
Yeah. Key audit areas being those areas that are more judgmental or contain estimates, or the accounting standards are complex, or if we've identified a gap in internal controls, they might be more susceptible to error. The first item noted is management override of internal controls. It should be mentioned that this is a required audit risk in accordance with Canadian auditing standards, and this just acknowledges that management, by virtue of their position, can circumvent controls. It doesn't mean that we identified anything or had any particular concerns, but we have to consider it as we conduct our audit. So procedures that we apply is that we review manual journal entries close to year end that may sort of indicate shifting of funds or shifting of expenses, reviewing key estimates and other adjustments that were reflected in preparation of the financial statements. We didn't identify anything to raise to your attention today. This second item I'd like to go over is revenue recognition. This is also a required standard, and it acknowledges that revenue is inherently complex in its application in public sector accounting standards. So in this section, we review deferred revenue balances by looking at grant agreements as well as the underlying substance of that deferred revenue to ensure that the village truly has a liability associated with that. Otherwise, it should be recognized into revenue. We also review the minutes to try to detect anything that maybe wasn't recorded. So we did identify an audit adjustment in this area, which I'll review when I get to that section of the report. The third area is the assets held for sale. So they're assets held for sale. Typically, land and other infrastructure is contained in the non-financial assets section of the financial statements. But when you have an asset that's held for sale, it becomes a financial asset. As a result, we review the criteria that needs to be met in order for it to be presented as a financial asset. Because the pieces of property were being actively marketed, that was a fairly easy task to meet. We also reviewed support for the different valuations of the property in excess of their cost values, and we looked at subsequent sale documentation for the note disclosure. The other areas, they're important, but they're more standard, so I'm going to leave it to council to review on their own time unless there's any questions associated with those. So I would like to now jump to Appendix B, which is where we review the adjusted and unadjusted differences arising from the audit. We start with the unadjusted differences.
Page 21.
The first item is fairly minor accrual of debt interest at year end. You'll notice that it's a rolling difference. We've identified it in past years. The impact to the statement of operations is $4,200, so fairly small. The second item was raised already regarding the sick pay accrual. So the village does accrue 100% of the sick leave liability. Because sick pay doesn't, it doesn't have a cash value to staff members. If should they ever leave the village, a payment wouldn't be issued for their sick leave bank. The sick leave liability should be accrued to the level that it's expected that employees would actually take the sick leave. Did I lose everybody there?
So maximum of 1 year.
Is there
I
a
don't know.
maximum
Sorry?
cap?
Is there a maximum of 1 year's sick pay?
Accrual.
Accrual? Yeah, I think through the union agreement, they can accrue up to 600 hours, and then with the management, it's unlimited. But like when someone leaves, any vacation they've accrued, by law, that has to be paid out, but the sick time isn't paid out. So what we're saying is we've probably overstated it.
Yeah.
Because we know not everyone will take, well, hopefully, not take all their sick leave before they leave.
You can accrue up to 600 hours.
Yes.
Okay, and then take 3 months of sick in one particular year, whatever the math is. Yeah, okay.
You could, right, but I mean, it would have to be supported sick leave.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So the technical right accounting is to, as Paul said, estimate how much will actually be used and discount it back to when you think it will actually be used. And the only people that can do that sort of calculation is actuaries. So you've been conservative, as Pam said, and accrued the whole thing. So it's conservative accounting, it's good from that regard. Technically, not in accordance with accounting standards, that's why it's on our list, but it's not a material item.
And the reason, because even though I think the auditors have estimated what this entry is, and I've offered to book it, we can't book it because you have to have an actuarial valuation, and that does cost money. So larger municipalities, when I worked at West Vancouver, would pay someone, and they would come in every year, they'd do that actuarial valuation, and then we would book the entry. But being a smaller municipality, I am going to get some quotes on getting that done, but it's a lot of work, and it's they look at, it's just like insurance, like they look at like life insurance, they look at all sorts of statistics, and there's a price for that. So that's why we don't book it, because we don't do that actuarial evaluation, basically for budget reasons. So we've overstated the liability, so it just goes on the unadjusted difference. So there isn't really any implication. It just means we're carrying too high a liability, probably for sick time. But the cost to reduce that liability, it's not just I can't just do that entry. I have to prove the entry by hiring an actuarial, and we choose not to do that.
So we just correct it every year?
We don't correct it. It goes as an unadjusted correction.
So long as it stays within a margin of error, then we're fine to have it
Okay.
carried. The last item, very small, it was an asset that was amortized for the full fiscal year, whereas it should have been amortized effective the date that it was put into service. So small timing difference there, resulting in $5,600 difference, very minor.
And can I just speak to this? This is actually an estimate of all of the amortization of all our assets, because we were taking a full year's amortization when it was brought into service, and now it's been recommended in the management point that you'll see that we start depreciating from the time it goes into service, which we'll start doing. So this was sort of an estimate of the impact it had on the depreciation, because we were taking, like I say, a full year's depreciation on the year we got the asset.
And I think it's probably worth saying too that I'm thinking of the council meeting I just came from, where when we went through this, we probably didn't explain it very well, that somebody thought that maybe this adds up to $24,000, there's $24,000 cash missing or something. None of this is cash. This is just timing of accounting numbers. There's no cash that's gone out, or other assets have gone out the door. Strictly accounting timing differences.
All right. So we step to the next page, I mentioned that there was a small difference associated with grant revenue recognition. So in our audit testing, we identified that eligible expenses against one of the grants was in excess of what was accrued, and so we recommended an additional accrual of $10,660, which was reflected in the financial statements. And the last item there was just a small classification change between the different departmental expenses. That's that schedule that Bill discussed earlier. So the last section of the report I would like to review is Appendix D, which goes, it's called our management letter. It's where we identify potential improvements or best practices that can be implemented in the financial reporting process. So as we discussed, amortization of tangible capital assets, I think we've sort of reviewed that already. That was the only point this year. Last year, just sort of an update on last year's points. We made a comment about the new employer health tax that's been integrated into current year financial systems, and a comment about the CAO's expense report, which is now reviewed and approved by the mayor. So, I would welcome any questions if there are any at this point.
Just one question right back to the beginning. So you said we had a materiality of $70,000, and then I think on the next page there's something about anything that's 5% of that is reported, or something to that effect.
That's great.
So anything that's $3,500 would have shown up in this report. Is that what you're saying?
Or higher.
Or higher?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And it's, you know, when there are reconciliations prepared, there's typically, you know, like a $10 or $11 difference. It's just, it's not cost effective for Pam to chase it down or for us to chase it down. Those are just deemed to be inconsequential to the overall opinion of the financial statements.
Any questions? None? Can I have a motion that the report Village of Lions Bay 2018 final audit report be received for information purposes? Thank you. Second, all in favor? We are good. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
So you're going to close?
We are good. Don't run away.
Still in the hot seat.
Very quick of you. Okay, we're going to close meeting. That the meeting be closed to the public on the basis of matters to be considered under the following sections of the committee charter. 91, a part of a council meeting may be closed to the public if the subject matter being considered relates to or is one or more of the following. Item A, personal information about an identifiable individual who holds or is being considered for a position as an officer, employee or agent of the municipality or another position appointed by the municipality. C, labor relations or other employee relations. O, the consideration of whether the authority under section 91, other persons attending closed meetings, should be exercised in relation to a council meeting. And that Bill Cox, partner BDO Canada, and Paul Fripp, partner BDO Canada, be allowed to attend the closed portion of the meeting per section 91 of the community charter. Can I have a motion to, thank you, Neville second, then we will go into closed. Okay, the closed session is ended and we are at 8:02. We have come back into open. And from the closed session, there is nothing to report. We will continue with our open session on item 5, which is review and approval of minutes of prior meetings, which is on page 53 of everybody's package. Can I have a motion to receive the minutes? Second, any changes? Is that your hand or your glasses are going funny there?
Glasses.
I had no changes myself. Anybody else? Counselor Bain, anything? No? Counselor Coniff, anything? Nope. Well, that's, okay. All right. Can I have?
Sorry,
oh,
just
yep.
slow down.
Go, take your time.
We're still in the same, it's all the same minute, huh? Yeah. On page 60, item C down the bottom, ACOM verbal report. I read this, but when we were in the meeting, I understood this to be because of the work we're doing in replacing the Harvey tank. Is that correct?
Sorry, which, what page?
So it's bottom of
Page
page
60.
60.
ACOM verbal reports, Wexford manager, DEFO, the Vice Council, staff ACOM model, the water system during extreme summer drought. That discussion, we needed to do this because of the Harvey tank replacement. It wasn't something we'd have to do every year.
No. It's because of the Harvey replacement.
Okay, so I think we should put that in there because when I read it on my own, it implies that this is an ongoing thing. It doesn't mention the Harvey tank replacement.
What would your suggested amendment be, Councillor Abbott?
How about just adding to the paragraph, just put a comma, for the duration of the Harvey tank
Perfect.
replacement
Yeah.
project.
Yeah.
Good
I
with
think if
that?
anyone else read it, they'd think that's an annual thing.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councillor Abbott, can you move to receive the minutes as amended?
Yep.
So done. Second, all in favor? Accepted unanimously, thank you. Business arising from the minutes?
I have one, and maybe I just need to be reminded what I got told last week. In section 6, business arising, we spoke about some stuff that was going on in the FULA report. The letter to Metro for asking for exemption from the wood bylaw thing, that's not on the report. Peter did answer my question, but I can't remember what the answer was.
I don't remember what the question was,
The
but
question was that letter that's going out to Metro supposed to make it onto our unfinished business?
I think my suggestion was that it didn't need to be. In any event, it's moved. It's been done.
It has been done?
It's been done.
Okay.
Done.
And that's it.
That's the key answer to your
It was
core
done.
question.
It was done the next week.
Oh, okay.
right.
Is that going to be shared with us? I didn't recall seeing any
No, it wasn't done the next week. It's just done recently. So
So will it be shared
No,
with?
Is that where I wanted it to go somewhere, one place, you wanted it to go another place?
yeah,
Yeah. Okay,
and it didn't go either place right away.
okay.
But it's been done.
All right,
Okay. So will it be shared with the rest of us?
Yeah, it's just a letter to Metro's corporate officer saying, here's a request. Here's a resolution was passed by council. Please put this on your board's agenda.
Okay.
Yeah. Then they'll refer it to the Climate Action Committee.
Okay.
And I also sent materials separately to the head of the Climate Action Committee, so he's already got it. So
Okay.
he can start looking. He doesn't have to wait for the board to send it to him. So.
Okay. Thank you.
when it circles around and comes back through the Climate Action Committee, I'll send you a copy of it. Okay, are you good with that, Councillor Abbott?
Yep.
So no business arising. Anybody else? Nope. Next up, unfinished business. Batteries up, number 76, CAO.
That is,
Dormant.
yeah, that's, I get in progress, I think would be a better term.
Can I comment on that?
Yep.
I've had a discussion with 3 of the resident members of the Infrastructure Committee, and I've got a better understanding on what their issues have been about sitting on the sidelines for too long, and come up with an understanding of how to keep them engaged. What I would like to see happen with the IC is that we continue the monthly meetings regardless, yet we have sort of different levels. For example, if we've got big issues on the table, then it would be everybody come in, staff and everything, but if there's just general discussion that about the infrastructure, then maybe staff doesn't need to be there and use up their valuable time. But these three resident members would very much like to be able to brainstorm and sort of look down the road and see what's coming and offer their insights to the rest of the council. So before we come up with a policy, I'd like to give that a try if we could.
Well, I thought that perhaps we'd have a discussion, a subset of perhaps yourself and I and myself and perhaps the mayor. But in any event, it's on the table now. I saw some issues with that. I don't really have it in front of me and don't have my notes scribbled on the page that I printed it on. I think there was some things that I could see still being an issue, and that I thought would benefit from some further discussion before taking it live, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So perhaps we could have that discussion sooner than later. I guess, unless you want to have it now, but it's happening.
We're halfway around the corner,
Okay.
Peter.
So, if I'm remembering correctly, one of the issues that I identified was that regardless of whether it's a big issue or a little issue, if there's not a direction from council to look at or review a particular topic or an issue, then by default, what's being discussed are issues that are not within the priority lineup for Public Works or the village. We have an infrastructure master plan which lays out the path that we're on. We have asset management investment plan that helps us as well identify things that we need to be working towards. We have a strategic priorities direction, and we have regular direction from council as to things that need to be done, or we're given direction on certain things. If the committee is meeting just for the sake of meeting and just coming up with ideas on their own that aren't already within our list of things to do, then what's going to be the result? The result might very well be recommendations coming forward to council about doing things or looking into things or researching things or furthering lines of inquiry regarding matters that are not within the list of priorities that we have. And I'm concerned that we will simply be adding those types of things to an already full mandate. So I think that's my key concern about having meetings when there isn't direction from council as to the issues upon which the committee should be meeting to discuss and review and opine and provide recommendations.
Well, I agree 100% with your comment. We're not looking to add more workload to staff. In fact, I think that is something I'd like to see avoided, because you guys are already running on overdrive right now. But I think what we're talking about more with the IC is sort of discussion pieces, more on the theoretical point rather than coming up with a wish list. Or maybe they could have a look at what we are doing, and something might need tweaking along the way if something from their professional opinion warrants another look at it. Not that we're going to rewrite the infrastructure master plan or the tangible assets plan.
So when you say looking at something that we're doing to see if it needs tweaking, I guess what I'm hearing is Public Works is going to be, the oversight committee is the infrastructure committee to get down in the weeds and make sure that Public Works is doing things in the most efficient way that they can possibly be doing it. And I know that's not what you meant when you said it, but that's kind of like, well, that's not really their role either. So
No, you're right.
that's
not what I
again,
mean.
I'm concerned that that.
I don't think anybody should be protected from critique or review.
I'm not saying that the way in which we do things is perfect, or that we shouldn't be subject to criticism, or preferably constructive criticism, on the way we do things, on anything. Myself, Pam, any of the work that we do. I think there's always room for improvement. And we don't mind having those conversations at all. I'm just concerned that there will become a list because things are being discussed that aren't within what's on our already big list of stuff to do, and I'm concerned about adding to that list
I guess
unnecessarily.
your challenge is to come up with a policy for the committee that harnesses that brain trust. That's your job. You got to come up with a structure that's going to give the committee something to do and add value. I know that's not an easy thing to do, but we got to figure it out. We can't just say go away. That
I'm
would
not
be irresponsible.
saying that either. I'm just saying
Yeah.
that it needs to be, in my opinion, it needs to be predicated on council direction as to what they ought to be doing.
It stifles creativity.
To be fair, 4 of the 5 councillors are on that committee.
Mhm.
Nothing comes back to the rest of council, the 5th councillor, without us bringing it back to the committee. So if the infrastructure committee is going to go in exploring some theoretical desalination plant concept or whatever, it's not coming back to the council because the filters are there. They're going to say, great discussion, guys. You know, the thing about it, we're not taking this anyway. So we have the ability to make sure that it goes nowhere else. And if they do want to keep this, but if something comes up that we think is relevant, then whether it's this meeting saying go look at it, or 4 of the 5 people in that meeting saying, yeah, I'm going to take it back to the 5th and the people around here and suggest we go look at it, you still have the same filter.
I guess the problem is that you're not going to get very far with any discussion without getting information from staff. So it's going to come back to staff to look up stuff, to provide information. If we don't have it, can we get it? And what does that look like? It looks like Mr. Jaffer is spending time tilting at windmills and going down rabbit holes. And that's the extreme. I'm laying it out there as an extreme. I don't suggest that anybody's intention is to be frivolous at all. That's not my intent. But that's my concern. So ultimately, yeah. Ultimately, it's going to create additional stuff for Nye in particular to chase down the information that's being requested. And if it's not on his priority list, he's having to push something else off the table in order to go do it. That's my concern.
But that only happens if council decide we want him to do it, not if the infrastructure committee decides it's something we should be doing. That's the difference I'm making.
But that means that there should be a top-down process whereby council
Yes.
instructs the committee what they'd like them to look into. I
I
think.
think you're making it too easy for the committee. The
Pardon me?
committee also needs to be productive. We can't just be sitting around talking. It actually needs to produce something of value, and that's for the committee to figure out. So what is the committee going to produce that helps the village, that helps staff, that helps council? That's the challenge back to committee. What we're trying to do is control this. We can't control it that much. We just have to create a higher level objective. You know, the committee is meant to look at things that maybe we're not looking at, and they actually have to produce something, whether it's a report, but it has to add value to the exercise. Otherwise, it's a pointless meeting where we're just talking and listening. You know, one person talks over the other person. Nothing's actually getting constructively produced. That's my frustration. That has been my frustration with the committee. So I think it's on both bodies to figure out how to make this work. It's not just on staff to come up with a policy or the committee to be told what to do. I mean, the challenge needs to be put out to the committee. How can they add value?
You know, maybe that would be the good first step, is go back to the committee, say the May meeting, and we could have that discussion from the committee level with a proposal. Then it could go to the 4 of us to discern it, and then bring it to council, and then just see if we can work something out that's a win-win for both sides.
I think on this one too, part of the thinking here is that unless the committee's been given some direction, there's a bit of an issue here that, Councillor Abbott's kind of stumbled on. If there are 4 councillors there, you have quorum. So that's an issue. And it's something that's, let's call it a brainstorming session. I presume that the staff were not going to be present at these meetings.
Their choice. If they don't choose to come, that would be fine.
Well,
If staff aren't there,
well,
then is it not a quorum?
Yeah, I don't remember what quorum is because we've gone to 8 instead of 7, so I think 4 is still quorum, I'm not sure. But it could be any 4. Yeah.
so I guess in these kind of, let's call it these softer meetings, I'm not sure, what the game rules are, or who's going to be attending. So that's my limited piece in this. So, gentlemen, where do you want to leave this then? I think you're still working on
I would still like to come up with something, even if it's sort of a basic, here's some key points, or here's some key considerations that we all need to take into account. And then maybe that goes to a committee meeting and see what everybody thinks about it, and people can provide input and feedback. I think it would be best to do that and get as much feedback as we can from all parties, and see what people think. I mean, we've got some indication as to some of the thoughts of some of the committee members, but I think that there needs to be a greater understanding around the table as to what the concerns are and what the key considerations are, and like you say, trying to find where can we create the most value, and how can we do that in a way that is efficient, and yeah, that's about it. Leave it at that.
If I can offer 2 thoughts then. I don't want to put you under time pressure, but I was just thinking if you could have something in the next little while, we could strike the committee for the May meeting and have the discussion of the points you want to bring up. Or if you're too busy to do it for this one, maybe the committee could meet and they could come up with their points for you to discuss, choose. And I think we could represent your points of view as best we could. So one way or the other, we can come to the same meeting point, I think.
Yeah, well, I think it would be better to do that sooner than later, so
Yeah.
I would be happy to come to the next meeting.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that could be the main part of the whole point of getting together for the meeting, I think, is the 3 that I talked to all of them but Brian. He hadn't written anything, so I thought, I'm not sure I should really call him. But they were really quite strong about keeping the committee going, and they thought there was real value to it. And not only that, they really enjoy taking part in the community in this manner. And I know from my years of dealing with volunteers in the fire service, if you don't let them work, they fall away. And the morale drops, and then you don't get good input. So I think we gotta encourage, especially our resident members, non-council ones, that they are valued, and we do want to listen to see what they have to say. But no, we don't want a work list. None of us wants a work list. I mean, there's enough going on around here anyhow. But the thing that struck me by all 3 of them that spoke to me was that from their professional position, they may see things that none of the rest of us around this table have yet. Maybe not, but it might be. And I think that opportunity would be lost if we didn't capture it somehow. So I'd like to be able to hang on to that.
I think we'd be foolish not to.
Sorry?
We'd be foolish not to. That's what we're lucky to have that group of people.
It would be hard to recruit that quality of what we've got.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
Next one's done?
So do we have an action out of that, or is it just, did we just?
Yeah,
no,
just-
Yeah, no, I'm
It's on
gonna
the deadline. I've done
come
it.
up with just a core discussion piece that We'll bring to the next IC meeting.
Here, next up again.
Yeah, that's done.
Yep.
Oh, sorry.
83.
78's done. 83 is on the long list. So that'll be as I have further discussions with Metro, I will look into the pros and cons and the positives and negatives and the implications of the UCB.
Is this something that should stay in unfinished business in perpetuity, or?
I don't know.
I'm,
Leave it there for now.
okay, leave it there for now, okay. Number 87, Mr. Doherty, I'm sure I've had quite a lot of emails with him, and I've also written him a handwritten thank you for his participation in Volunteer Week, so that one's off. So that's gone, Shauna. Number 87, Councillor Abbott. Number 88.
I've had further discussions with people that were part of that old tiered hydro two metered system. Understand it's almost certainly getting done away with. All attempts to keep that in place have failed through Utilities Commission and so on by various people, Douglas Miller and others, the previous councillors and mayors that were here. I don't know where I'm going with it. I kind of feel as if I said I'd try to do something, but I'm just not too sure what to do next, so maybe we'll just leave it on in a few weeks and I'll sleep on it.
Why don't you sleep on it and give us your advice next time, and if it's going nowhere, then let's strike. You can just bear the pain yourself.
I feel we need to do at least something, but I'm just not sure what the next
Okay.
step is.
Kiddo, you're next up again.
That's been done.
Thank you. Mr. Jaffer?
So we're still investigating. The trees that were cut were approved by the school board, but I need to do a bit more digging before I respond back to Ms. Monroe.
No beavers, eh?
No.
Okay. Kiddo, that stays. Mr. Waller, that's been responded to. That's a strike. And
I have been negligent in my response back to Ms. Nelson, so I will do that.
thank you. Thank you. And that concludes unfinished business, and we're up to reports. And CIO, you were at number 1.
So this is very
Norman, I should be serving them drinks for the way he's beautifying the neighborhood. You're setting a tone here.
yeah, I mean, there's a request to build a short, not short, it's quite long, but it's only 2 feet high, retaining wall to retain soil so that it can continue the beautification, planting, gardening all along the upper bank above the ditch on Ocean View. And there's no municipal infrastructure that is impacted by this. And did you have anything else to add, Brian?
No, there's a drainage course, there's plenty of room,
Yeah.
and the agreement that's being proposed will allow us to remove it if need be, but I don't see any issue with the wall.
So this is on the upside of the drain, or the tunnel? Okay.
Yeah, it's an extension of the wall that's already in place
I can tell you,
on page
it is
67.
going to be a thing of beauty.
Yeah.
All right, thanks. Well, the motion is, I'll put it forward, that the municipality enter into an encroachment agreement with the owners of 290 Ocean View Road in substantially the same form as the draft agreement attached to this report. And secondly, that the CAO and the mayor be authorized to execute the agreement. Can I have a motion? Thank you. Second. Any discussion? Yes?
So the picture could be deceptive, and I haven't been there, obviously. I don't know the area as well as others. Similar concerns that I've had in other questions about this. It's far enough away from the drainage ditch that it's not going to affect the drainage ditch. Be sure of that,
Yes.
because it doesn't look like in the picture.
No.
We have a study that we're going to be doing, going to slightly lower down, but it's going to look at all of the drainage in this area. Would it be prudent to make sure that that study doesn't come up with a suggestion that it can affect this or increase the size of this ditch, or we need to do something here? Should we at least let that happen and just make sure that we don't create another situation where we can't do what we need to do?
If I may, the agreement allows us the opportunity to
Except that,
remove.
except that wouldn't be a fair thing to do if you did it a month after he's dug prison water.
Understood.
Blow it up.
From my understanding in reviewing this, the ocean view drainage, the ditches are sized appropriately for the drainage. Where we have issue is where the ditches have been filled in by residents. You have a resident here who wishes to beautify the boulevard. The wall isn't going to impact the shoulder. If the ditch, for whatever reason, needs to be made wider, there's plenty of room within that existing boulevard to make the ditch wider. So it's one of the things that Public Works looks at when we get these encroachment reports. Is there anything that we could potentially need to do in the future that would impact that boulevard? So,
Okay. And when did you get the first draft of that study?
I'm not sure, I need to follow through or follow up with that.
Well, it's just a suggestion, if they are close enough and it's not going to affect what this guy wants to do, maybe we should just look at that first and just double check. Because we have got, because we have set precedences before that allowed us to get into this situation where we end up, we can do some drainage without taking down someone's wall.
The problem has been the people who have filled in ditches without approval, who have done landscaping work without approval that has impacted our existing drainage.
Or who have installed undersized culverts.
Yeah, yeah.
Councillor Abbott, are you suggesting a caveat on this? Or are you fine with the works manager's point of view?
The work manager's really convinced and doesn't think we want to wait a little bit and just see the study doesn't say anything, then I'll defer to his better judgment. He knows it better than I do.
Good. It is a good point that the residents should build the ocean view wall, and we ask them to tear it down partway through which is your
I
point.
thought if we have a bit
There you
more
go.
time, do we just
All right.
double check?
Is is the study actually covering this?
It'll look at the existing ditch profiles to make sure that they can convey the drainage based on the calculation
From
of
the
the
top
areas.
of Ocean View?
From the top
Yeah.
of Ocean View all the way down.
Okay. Maybe touch
So-
base with him and just see how far away he is, or if he's
Yeah,
looked
my
at
only
this.
concern is slowing down the resident
Right.
who's finally built up enough money to proceed with this and
Right.
has been talking to contractors, and
Right, yeah.
I have no problem saying stop if that's what council wants. But we looked at this thoroughly and couldn't see any issue
Right.
around this. Even if we had to increase the size of the ditch,
Yeah.
based on this study, there's plenty of room to do so.
Well, then maybe just point out to the resident that
Yeah.
there's a slight risk that we're trying to get a study, we'll try to give them a better answer, but there's a slight risk that this could
I
happen.
think that would be the responsible thing
Yeah.
to do. How about we do that? So let's ask the works manager to take that one away. And which brings us back to the legislation on the table, so I'll call a motion. All in favor? Thank you. Next one, North Shore Adjudication Agreement.
So this is just a verbal, just want to let you know that we've got that all ironed out now, and we have already taken care of the amendment of our bylaw 385, which is the bylaw notice enforcement bylaw, which became the old agreement. We already amended that to enable us to enter into a new agreement with the District of North Vancouver instead of City of North Vancouver. The agreement basically, the only real substantive change is to the model is that we're only going to be paying for adjudications that we actually hold, as opposed to providing a deposit for the year and then getting a refund of most of it at the end of the year because we had so few adjudications. So now we will only pay when we actually have adjudication schedule. So that's beneficial to us. Doesn't change the amount budgeted in our
Budget.
2019 budget. So yeah, it's all good. And
This is real good, because
Once
the
you just-
alternative was not so good.
yeah, and I need you to sign it before we leave tonight.
Okay?
So that's that one.
George, do we already have approval to do
Yeah.
the thing? Good,
Yeah,
thank
the
you.
bylaws already
Done.
been amended.
All right, thank you, and we'll receive that. Thank you. Any questions? Nope. Next one up, CFO.
Yes, I just have some on-table quotes for you to pass around.
This wouldn't be on the
No,
table,
so it's
would
2
they?
pages. It would be. It's just the there was just a couple of small tweaks to the financial statements, so before you approve them, I just wanted to,
Thank you, Pam.
oh, sorry.
No worries.
Just,
Just, yeah.
Just start with kind of the overall, the purpose of this report is we're required by the community charter for council to approve the financial statements. So in the past, we've had the auditors present at a committee of the whole, and then it's come to council, but because they presented at the council meeting, in the same meeting, we're asking for approval of the financial statements. And these, what I've handed out are just, there's, often happens with the draft, we have to get them out so quickly for the package. When we go back and take a closer look, we just have a few tweaks. So in note 4, the financial statements that you saw said obligations for vehicle and emergency radios, but this year the vehicle lease was actually paid off, so it's just emergency radios. And then there's the change that came up during the presentation about the fees bylaw. So we'll be changing bylaw 330 to bylaw 497. And then on the segmented note that the auditors spoke about, unfortunately this is in Word, so the totals were right. There was just some very small inconsequential typos that I caught. So the highlighted yellow numbers, those numbers have just been changed slightly. And then in one case, under protective services, the numbers had just been in the wrong line. So actually, to prevent this from happening in the future, we're going to start doing this schedule in Excel. It's very hard when you have to go into the Word document and type in all the numbers. But I wasn't comfortable with council approving the financial statements when I'm going to be making a few minor changes to the ones that you saw tonight. So that was the purpose of this. But just in terms of what the process is, say by May 15th, all municipalities have to submit their tax bylaw, their budget bylaw, their 5-year financial plan, and the financial statements, plus what are called the LGDE forms. We take the financial statements, and then there's kind of quite a lengthy process you have to do to enter them into kind of these common forms so that they can all be analyzed, and that's the May 15th deadline. So as part of that process, you actually have to formally approve the financial statements, which is what this resolution is for. So I don't know if there were any additional questions about the financial statements after the presentation.
Just an aside, so these radios for the rescue guys?
It's for Public Works and for the fire volunteers, so they're e-com radios. They were purchased last year. We get quite a good price through e-com. It's about 35 radios in total and all the programming, and it's so we can speak to each other and other places. And then we can pay for them over 7.5 years. So we set it up as a capital lease.
Wasn't there a grant or something? Wasn't there a grant to do with that or something? Was there a grant?
Not that I'm aware of, no, not for the e-com radios.
Okay.
Can I make a comment?
Sure.
To your point about the cost on them, all the fire radios have to have the qualification of being intrinsically safe, that they can go into an explosive atmosphere without detonating it for some reason.
I know what that means.
So I can use it in my car?
Yeah, generally they're anywhere from 2 to 3 times as expensive as a standard radio.
I know what the word intrinsically safe adds to the value of electrical equipment. I've felt that one before. Just 2 words that add a lot of money.
We had challenge with the Public Works radios that we had before, that they didn't work at the intake. So it was really hit and miss, so these radios are much superior. And So that's basically for the safety of our staff, because we have people going up there and they have to have constant radio contact.
Any other questions?
Something down in that.
All right, I will put forward the motion that the Village of Wayne's Bay's 2018 audited financial statements as presented to Council on May 7th, 2019 be approved pursuant to the Community Charter Section 167-1, and that the 2018 audited financial statements be included in the 2018 annual report pursuant to the Community Charter Section 98. Can I have a second? Any discussion? Going, gone, or it's gone in the books? Call a motion, all in favor? It's in the books, thank you, CFO. Who doesn't love a good Harvey Tank update?
How much time do you have?
Well, I would just tap my phone and I can see we're actually speeding along here. We might be out of here before 10 tonight if we move.
We have, as of 10 o'clock last night, Ocean View Tank was put into service with the blessing of Vancouver Coastal Health. We have some glitches that we need to iron out. There is additional testing that VCH has mandated that requires staff to perform some overtime to do some sampling and testing during peak hours in the evening. We're hoping that once we prove or provide a documented standard of results, that it doesn't vary, then we'll cut that requirement out. The next step is to begin demolition of the Harvey tank, and that's a process that will take approximately a month. Demolition is probably the wrong terminology. It's a deconstruction more than demolition. So the tank will be disassembled piece by piece. Concrete chunks will be broken off into manageable pieces and then hauled away.
Why is that?
As opposed to,
Smearing the crap out of it.
it's a structural water reservoir with tons of steel. You could try and dynamite it, but
Okay, so
Not
we're
gonna
not
happen.
selling the TV rights on this one?
no, it has to be
It's not good enough
manually.
for water, but you can't.
They're gonna wire cut
Let's do it.
They're gonna have to wire that.
You're gonna wire cut
Let's tell the people below there's full of water too.
Yeah. So that's
That was
pretty
a,
much
that
it.
was a joke, Councillor.
Oh, no, I was just wondering about a term I hadn't heard before here.
wire
Okay.
cutting.
Yeah.
All right,
Wire with diamonds goes.
So-
Goes very high speed.
so Works Manager, when do the trucks start running up that hill?
Possibly before the end of the week.
Okay,
Yeah.
We got a resident at the very top of the hill that has water pressure issues.
All the residents to the corner will have reduced water pressure. There are 2 residents that have water pressure that's dropped below the typical municipal standard, which is 35 psi. For those 2 residents, we were obliged to purchase and install pumps in their homes. They were hovering at around 8 or 9 psi. Yeah.
can you tell Councillor Boromir and I who those are before we go tonight?
Sure. Yeah.
Unless you know who they are?
No, I think one, yeah, we've got one that's.
One that's below that, the gentleman that I think you're talking about, has above 35 psi, which is a typical municipal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. So there's nothing but good news there.
Depends.
Progress.
Yeah,
That's
progress.
awesome.
Yeah.
Progress. And we're gonna be finished again when?
The optimistic schedule has us completed by the end of August.
Nice.
Back to live?
Back to live on the, yeah. But
Still,
I must
we're still
stress,
on that?
I must stress that's the optimistic
That's
schedule.
okay. Well, give
Yeah,
you
but
another-
Blue sky
That'd be,
schedule.
that'd be
I
good
think-
to give you 30 days, that's
The
fine.
realistic, realistic is probably a bit
Everybody
harder.
wants it done, right?
Yeah.
Since you've got the floor, how are we doing with the CN parking lots? I thought I'd throw that one as a jump ball, bonus ball.
We met with. That came out of nowhere. We
What's a
met-
jump ball?
We met with CN.
It's the water.
CN Public Works Manager from Edmonton.
Yep.
Last week, received approval. Tomorrow, I believe, we begin excavation to put in the drainage. And then next week, the fence will go in, and then paving after that.
I'm losing my days here. When's the May long weekend?
Week after next.
It's gonna be a little hot when the residents stand on it.
Yeah. It's gonna be tight,
Okay.
especially with the paving. We're not 100% sure we're gonna make it for the May long weekend.
All right, so thank you very much for that. Are we, the greater we, I'm looking at staff, are we gonna do something in the village update on the RV tank update? And
Yeah.
also, since we just talked about the parking lot, that one too?
Sure.
Is that okay?
Yep.
Good, good. All right, moving on. Councillor Abbott, I believe, I've got my notes right, you are next up. We bumped you ahead.
Yeah, there's no question, yes.
You did ask.
Okay, we are moving, come on.
Okay, well, page 93.
And I'm looking at the clock here, and I do have an objective tonight, so let's get right to it.
Okay. So, page 93, this is an email that myself and CEO Peter Leon shared back in January when the mayor asked me to investigate improving our communications. I didn't share with anyone else at the time. I probably maybe should have, looking at our communications policy. I know I should have. Anyway, so I wanted everyone to see it. I think I sent it last week for everyone to have a look at. I have made some progress on these goals. I think made some great progress in one campaign on the wood stove. And have discussed several times in council about doing similar things to that on future big ticket items. And I was starting to create a bit of time to go draft something more of a plan, more formal, get more input from the rest of council and staff, and come up with a strategy to improve our communications. In reflection, not sure that I have that mandate from council or if that's really what I should be doing. So I wanted to have that discussion first and get ideas. I mean, I don't intend to do this man alone. Get ideas what others think, or do we really think we need to do more or do anything, or should this thing just be parked and we carry on as business as usual? I do have access to people that have skills and background in communications that I am able to get free help from just by speaking to them. But I think I need a bit more clear binding guidance so that I don't waste mine or anyone else's time before we get too much further. I don't have a resolution or a statement that I want people to vote on. I just wanted to get kind of feedback from others.
Well, as feedback, why don't we do that, and then we'll get to this piece. Firstly, thank you very much, and this is not dissimilar to some of the stuff that you've placed in your articles, and I thank you very much for that. I think your overarching aim of better and more communication is good. I think that for me, there are some things that you or the greater we, the council folks, might do here in terms of getting increased folks onto our distribution list for the village update. But I think here that there needs to be an overarching strategy that we can all say that's where we want to go to. And I feel that that is something that should come from staff so that we can mull it. and decide where we're going to go. Now, I think on this, Councillor Abbott, I think I would not stop you on some of the stuff that you've got here, and, you know, we can perhaps work that out with CAO to John. But I think for the first time out, I think the report should come from staff as a start. I can't candy coat this because I'm pretty sure that it's a short week before we meet next, and that's the end of May. Then we've got 2 sessions in June and 2 in July. I'm not sure that the CAO will have this come forward before our break in August. Maybe yes, I don't know. But I think if we were going to go here, it's probably something that's going to surface again in the early fall. To my colleagues, please make comments. Anybody?
I mean, this correspondence policy, that's basically the bulk of our how we communicate with the village.
No. No, that's not at all. Correspondence is very limited in scope and closely defined. Correspondence is essentially correspondence from residents. It's not really communication.
Got it. So it's not
So,
communication. Okay.
I did.
Do we have a communication policy?
We don't. That was something that former Mayor Burr and I started in on, but it kind of went in a different direction that had more to do with detail on stylistic aspects.
This is going the wrong direction. I want to make a comment.
Thank you
I
for
think
your
that
speed on that.
as an entity, we have to have a communication policy, and we have to evolve that policy as media change, as our access to people changes. You know, some people have email, maybe future everyone's going to get text messages. I don't know what it is, but that needs to be a live document. So I support the idea of an updated communications policy in general.
Yeah, so there was an email that I sent.
And strategy.
That I sent to all of
To
council.
expand, correct?
What do you mean?
Well, you want to expand our communication in addition. There's 2 pieces.
Well, it has to be effective. So the policy
Yeah.
has to be effective in reaching residents, full stop. So we
Okay.
need to figure that out. And I think it needs to be an evolving document that grows with the times. So, you know, a poster board in the corner somewhere isn't going to work. We need to reach people with modern media. So that policy needs to be updated as that sort of thing. So I support that idea in principle.
Okay.
Are we there yet? I don't know.
No, I think we all agree we're not there yet.
So what I was going to say was, there was an email that I sent to everyone on April 24th that outlined all of the different ways in which we currently communicate with residents and all of the ways in which they communicate with us. There was over 16 different ways in which we communicate with residents. It was a long list, and I don't know if you remember that email. And there was 11 different ways in which they communicate with us, and I probably missed a couple. But it's very wide-ranging, and really the only thing that, you know, we do things that other communities don't do because we're small, and it makes sense for us to do them. But there really are only, I think, 2 things that other communities, larger communities, do that we don't do. And that is communicate through Facebook page and communicate through Twitter or other social media. I can tell you from going to many different conferences and sessions on communication and on social media, the policies that municipalities and regional districts have with respect to social media they run the gamut. But what you hear time and time again is that it requires constant attention and supervision and resources dedicated to making sure that if you're going to go there with social media as a means of communication, you have to go there. You have to devote the resources to do that properly, because if you don't, it's just going to be a gong show. And I would suggest that we don't have the resources to do that. And I'm not asking council to provide the resources to do that. I just don't think that's something that we're likely to be able to deal with at any time in the foreseeable short to midterm in any event. I don't know about longer term or how communications may evolve. I don't have a crystal ball, and who knows what that might look like in the future. But I would say that for the foreseeable future, that's not something that I can see us being able to bite off and chew in a way that provides added value to the municipality. I think that the variety of means that we have at our disposal is very extensive, but I think that we need to promote some of them more, and I think that we need to find ways that we can improve upon some of those things that we do. You know, we have made improvements to the village update over the past year. We've had good feedback about those changes. We are constantly making tweaks to and adding information to the website, which is also a key component of the means in which we provide information to residents. Part of what I sent in that email was an old survey from 2014 that talked about the ways in which we were communicating with residents back then and how they wanted to be communicated with. And by far, the manner in which they wanted to be communicated with was electronically. It was, the bar graph is like way out there and everything else is teeny tiny. The responses were almost negligible. And that response was email or e-post. And as well in here, the website, even at that time, which was a woeful website, was also a key component, or one of the identified key components in terms of how people like to get their information about the village. So I think that, to what Mayor McLaughlin said, I think it is important to have a communications policy, and I have got a folder with various communications policies from different jurisdictions. I'd like to put together something that is Lions Bay oriented and that speaks to the ways that we currently communicate and what we have at our disposal, and how different means of communication are intended for different purposes, because obviously some of these things are quite specific in terms of the intent for which they're to be used, such as Lions Bay Alert in case of emergency. The informational boards, when we cover up the outdoor water use signage, which is some of the biggest signage we have available to us, and is at all of the entrances to the different neighborhoods of the village for notifying people of public information meetings or town halls. So I think it is important to have that in a document and to bring it back to council, and for council to look at that and review it and analyze it and provide feedback on it, and probably send it back to staff to work on some more and bring it back for hopefully a final time after that. So whether we can get that done by the end of the summer or before the summer break, I'm not sure, but perhaps a first go-around before the August break, and then that'll give some extra time to bring it back in September for a final, if that's how it ends up going. But that's just my thoughts on it.
Councillors Bain and Cunliffe?
I have one comment I would have. I think what Councillor Abbott's come up with, the 5 goals here, are pretty much what we should be looking at around the table here, because they're more the principles that we hope he's calling as goals. And I'm not really interested in the details, like whether social media is good, bad, or indifferent, aside from the fact that I don't particularly care for it, but that's other people's interest. But if it's determined that it doesn't work for a good communication tool, that's fine. I'm happy one way or the other. But I think, reaching more of the community is, of course, it's going to be our goal, and improve feedback, qualitative and quantitative, from residents. Great, but, and create an environment where people are engaged and informed. I think all that's exactly what the principles we need to have to make this thing work. But somebody's got to work out the details to how to make it work. But I think if we can establish what our intent is and what the goals are, at least that would be a good start. Then anything that we come up with suggestions, we can measure it against the goals and say yay or nay to it, and make the whole process a whole lot easier, I would think.
Councillor?
Well, I would concur with pretty much everything that was said, and my only other suggestion would be that it's been 5 years since we've done a survey with the residents, that it would seem appropriate to do another one and see what the biggest response we get, and from take it from there. And maybe grade it on different levels of, like, community, you want to know what's going on in the community, as opposed to something that's vital and needs to be communicated.
Have a final word?
No, I think just to round this out, shall put it forward. So we're going to ask staff to come back with a communication strategy or policy. Before mid-September. Should we say that?
So I don't get a final word?
Oh, sorry. Yes, so I will be putting that forward. Councillor Abbott?
So the next step of these 5 goals I had seen was to develop a strategy document and a plan of what I think, because I've had input from lots of people, residents, and suggestions. Things we can do and things we can do different. That's what I want to do. To go to these 5 goals, give a bit more detail, give some ideas. We do the survey, great idea. Back in 2014 was the days when we used to have e-posts going out regularly. We didn't have the village update as current form. When we put the village update together, the idea was to consolidate all those e-posts. It was a good idea, actually. We suggested it. And it worked well. But it's also evolved and become a little bit cumbersome and come to some different stuff. I think there's other ways. And I've had input from people, suggestions how we can do it. My thought was, I would go away and come up with all these inputs of people with some suggestions, bring them to council, see what sticks. Council get some sort of direction of where they want to go with this, and then we go write a policy. Then staff can say to staff, this is what we're trying to do, this is what we think we should do, would you like to go write a policy? Personally, and I know some people are differently, personally I think writing a policy first is where we got the cart before the horse. We should decide what we want to do, get some good ideas, get a strategy, get it agreed, and then out of that, I'm sure there's going to be a policy or policy revisions or other actions that need to happen. So that's why I think having council go away and now write a policy, is premature and potentially not what we're thinking we want to do. I think we jumped to policy too fast.
So do you see then the crux of what you're talking about being to flesh out strategic goals for a communication plan? Because you've got 5 here. Are you anticipating that perhaps there's more? Or are you really getting into how those 5 goals are accomplished?
Unless council would like to change the 5 to 4 or suggest another 2, I was going to go flesh out on those goals. looking for input on those goals, and I could go flesh out on those goals. We know the social media is right at the end of it. Maybe we never get there. We get a small community. We got to get all of that. I'm not going to go away and start coming up, hey, this is happening. You get on Twitter now. That's not the intention. But yes, I was looking for some input on those 5 goals, and then I would go away and come up with, put together the suggestions I've already received from other residents.
So, can you give us an indication of what kind of suggestions you're
Well,
talking
I
about?
had one resident that came from the background who'd gone through the village website and had detailed suggestions for better functionality and how it would engage better, largely tweaks. But there was quite a lot of it.
So, website content or design?
No, the website layout, design.
So that's just so that you know,
That
that
creates
there was a package deal, was a year of difficulty
Right.
trying to deal with it. But, because we are a small community that can't afford
Right.
the $40,000-$50,000 website,
Get that. And that's-
we've got the small community website.
a point was made to this person, and he was saying, I'm suggesting things that are really simple, whatever. I just want to review them,
Mhm.
see if there's some stuff that comes out of there, put it together in a package. Goal number 4 was to make sure this didn't impact staff. That's why I wanted to do it. That's why I was volunteering to take it on, get something going without dragging you off from whatever else you want to do to go write a policy. There's been other residents that have suggested village update. There's been suggestions the village update maybe should be changed because it's grown, but it has seemed to have 2 functions, and maybe we need 2 separate functions. One for the lighter, less official kind of community stuff, and maybe it'd be more effective if people knew they got 2 different communications at 2 different times, and this would where they'd go to get them. These are the suggestions. I didn't want to sit here and start trying to go through them all. I was going to say that was the next step. And I think going away and writing another policy now might get us off track.
Well, certainly I can say that for all of us sitting here who were here in the last term, it's not unusual for usually the mayor to go away and write a whole bunch of stuff. So substantially, you're offering to do a bunch of work. In brief, in brief.
To get proper feedback, wouldn't the first step from that be to do a survey? I mean, you've got
Don't disagree at all. Yeah.
feedback from some people, but maybe open it up for everyone to give feedback
That's
then,
fine.
rather than,
Yes,
Survey.
I don't disagree at all.
What questions would you ask?
and then that would be the challenging these
Primarily,
questions.
what type of communication would you prefer?
Yeah.
And list the communication that we have available, rank on 0 to 5, and an other column to see if there is, I mean, who knows, maybe in the last 5 years, 78% of the population really wants Twitter. We don't know. Unlikely, but we need to ask the question. You give somebody the opportunity to provide their own input, and then make them aware. I mean, I didn't know that there's 11 different ways for me to communicate with the village. So that alone, just in everyone's mailbox again, so everybody we know is going to have access to it. That's a good start point.
Yeah, I think we need to flesh out the questions if we're gonna do a survey, to ask residents how they want it, right?
I think we have to be careful, we can't, options that we can't afford.
Not
Like
that
the-
it's a-
this Twitter or as we said, I mean, that would be a staff member. So I think it would
absolutely.
be disingenuous to say, do you want Twitter if we know we can't afford Twitter?
No, I'm not
And
saying
that
to
type of
put
thing.
that
Yeah, yeah.
down, but in a blank other column,
We may get
I
that.
mean,
Yeah.
you may.
Mhm.
And then if that was, then we would need to relook at that.
Mhm. And would give an opportunity if we did decide we couldn't afford it, but then through the communication, explain that, there's an overwhelming number of you who want Twitter, but this is how much it would cost you to
Yeah.
have Twitter, and then, so the back and forth.
Okay.
So maybe as we seem to be agreed that the first step would be a survey. So why don't we, as staff, start working on that in terms of putting something together? And I'll send it around for feedback and input, additional questions that you might have and ideas, and take it from there.
Or if you don't want staff spending their time, I could start it off and we could share it around and we could grow it and you could do the final bit.
Sure, you could commence the process and circulate it, and
There we go.
we'll.
All right, Councillor Abbott, I suggest you take that football and run.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right, so I think if I'm looking at the nods all around, so Councillor Abbott has the ball in the first stage of the survey. And
Are we giving him a deadline?
Trust me, they'll be self-imposed.
you are a dog. You're sitting there in the weeds. There you go. All right.
I'll be happy with the self-imposed deadline.
So-
Issue.
So that is a first leg in our strategy here. Thank you, Councillor Abbott, and of course your timeline is your own on this one. CAO, are you still in the periphery thinking of a communication policy or standing down?
I think I should wait to see
Okay.
what we have to work with and
So,
see where we go.
We will stand down on that, and can I have a nods of heads? That's fine, good, we are moving on then, thank you. All right, thank you, Councillor Abbott, you jumped, and now CAO, you are on policy.
So what we have is, I noticed that the correspondence policy, which is on page 89, contained at the end 4.3 information that really I felt belonged with the website content policy instead, and that the website content policy really ought to be the website and village update content policy. So that's the only change to the correspondence policy, is taking it out of there and putting it into the website and village update content policy. So that appears, that's plunked in on, beginning on page 3, section 4, where those things are stated. And there's an additional, just before the beginning of section 5, so there's a paragraph that says, such content may include a business logo identifying a financial sponsor of a Lions Bay volunteer or community group which receives a municipal grant, but there must be no link to the sponsor's business. It was identified or noticed that we have for years been receiving, we often get PDFs from events committee or other nonprofit groups who are holding fundraisers, or we get the annual mini golf charity, and the second page of which is full of corporate sponsored logos. And it's something that's always been there, and it's not something that we thought was an issue, provided that we're not providing links to those sponsors' businesses. So that's why that tweak is there. And prior to that, leading up to section 4 was just a few tweaks of wording here and there, not too consequential. Section 5 is a new section dealing with articles, mayor and council articles in the village update, what the intent of the articles is, and the intent of the information to be provided, and the editing if necessary. I mean, there generally has always been editing of those articles, and it's generally a constructive to and fro. I can remember Mayor Burr and I having lots of back and forth over some things, and virtually none over other things, and a few laughs along the way.
Usually
But,
months after the fact.
Yeah, of course after the fact. But at the end of the day, the intent, and I think, I'm not going to speak for Mayor Burr, but I think he would agree that at the end of the day, we ended up with articles that were as accurate as possible. Certainly, he wanted to make sure that what he was putting out was accurate. And so staff's role in part was to ensure that was the case. And my role as well to make sure that somebody's not inadvertently putting their foot in a place where they might have a difficulty extracting it. So that's all part of I think the CAO's role as editor of the Village Update, and that's essentially what this wording is intended to capture. And that's about it.
All right, just to get this to where we need to go, I'll put forward the motion on the policy amendments for the website Village Update and correspondence, that the website and Village Update content policy number 1704 be approved as amended, and that the correspondence policy number 1405 be approved as amended. I'll put the motion forward. Can I have a second? Then we'll go to discussion. Second, thank you. Okay, we're into discussion. Why don't we start with Councillor Abbott?
Okay.
Sorry,
Yeah,
when you were a child, you were picked out first. You had
Yeah.
A, B, B.
Always got to go first. Yeah. I can't help feeling it's fairly obvious. A lot of this came about because of the last Village Updates that I wrote in the back and forward I had with Peter, which I think was along the lines that he just described, he used to have with Cole. So I read it and then wonder, okay, why is it necessary? And, did I overstep a boundary and where was it? And I go third paragraph down. It says the information to be presented be fair and factual in manner with limitations of the platform provided. I don't think I overstepped that boundary. I read further down, communication or subtopics are positive and constructive. I thought I got that one right. I go further down, it says council bodies and decisions, it should not be a debate forum, the council is having made. I don't think I stepped on that one. So my first blush is when I get to that far is, well, once again, didn't know we needed another policy. I didn't know that this is necessary, and I think if we go what I spoke about previously, let's go away, come up with a plan. If we need a policy, we do it afterwards, not write the policy first. But that being said, up to that point, I guess I still think we didn't need a policy, no one asked for one, but I'm fine, I can accept it. But when I get the last sentence, I find it difficult to accept. Ultimately, the CAO as the editor of the Village Update is entrusted with the responsibility and discretionary authority to edit all content in the best interest of the municipality. I just have an issue when it says from the desk of Councillor Abbott that I don't get sign off. I just can't get my head around that concept. It's never happened to me in my entire life, in the business world or otherwise, that if it's got my name on it, that I don't get the final say. So I strongly feel that last sentence should come out, and we can go back to the back and forward, and I'll gladly take criticism from anyone if they think I overstepped any of those other boundaries above, but I'd like to see that last sentence deleted.
So I guess my question to you would be, let's say we're at an impasse, and do you think it should be, that there's something ought to be included? And I think, no, I don't think you can't put that in there.
I think.
And so then what, does the Village Update go or not go with your piece at all?
I think if it's something that's defamatory or could get us into some trouble, to others, you will have the wisdom just to refuse to send it. But I think that we're all adult and sensible enough to know what is reasonable and what is not. And as long as it's not one of those two things, the person that's writing it should be prepared to take responsibility for what they write take accountability for their rights, and be allowed to send it, as long as it's not inaccurate or defamatory, in which case, I mean, I don't think any of us is going to do anything like that. And if something like that gets pointed out, all of us will retract it and say, thanks for telling me that, good point, I take it back.
What if I say it's inaccurate and you say it isn't?
How can this is a fact. It either is or isn't.
Let's
I
move the
don't
ball
want
around
to
to Tim.
rehash what, you know, the back and forth that we had. And, you know, again, I hearken back to my experience with former Mayor Burr. I always tried to ensure that the position I was taking was, A, recognizing it's his piece. He has his own way of, he had his own style. I never tried to change the tone unless, you know, sometimes I did actually point out to him that you might want to tone that down a bit. And generally speaking, 9 times out of 10 he would. But my concern is that ultimately there will or may be things that are being said in such a way that either A, your average reader may think that what you're saying is the opinion of council or the municipality rather than your own personal view, and B, that it's not, I mean, there's always nuances to things, and my concern is that the interpretation of what you're saying is not an accurate reflection of the state of affairs. And it might not be as simple as that fact you're referring to about the financial of this or that is inaccurate, and you say, oh, thank you very much. That's not what I'm talking about. That's pretty simple. It's more a case of saying something in a way that can be interpreted quite to put a negative light on somebody or a group of people or council as a whole or the municipality or a process that may not be accurate. It might be your view.
And you felt I did that?
Like I say, I don't have our back and forth, but there were things in it that I felt were not fairly stated. And I pointed out what they were and why I thought that they needed to be changed. And I think that this is...
And I did change some of them.
At the end of the day, we got to a place where I was okay with letting it go. But I think that having some parameters for this platform is a good idea.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure why
I'm
you're...
very comfortable with all the parameters. It just sits up here, and I think that article that I did do on Friday met all of those, and I stand to be corrected, and if they didn't, no problem with that. The only issue I have with is the final part, and I just feel, you know, if it's from the desk of Council Abbott, and maybe there should be disclaimers on these things, that's another point we should maybe consider, if it says it's from the desk of the Council Abbott, it has not been sanctioned by Council. And if it is something that comes out of council, you should make that clear. It's pretty simple. You know, this was the decision of council. Whether you say this was the decision of council and one person disagreed, I think that's acceptable as well. But not talking about rehashing it or arguing it again. The only thing I have an issue with is the last statement about the discretionary authority to edit all content.
I would just point out that any newspaper, newsletter, online, all of those facilities or news outlets have editors that make the final call on.
Different situation. This is us wanting to talk to residents.
All right, we'll let the two of you rest for a minute. Councillor Barmere, you had your hand, want to go?
Well, I don't understand this need for so much control. Like, it feels stifling. I kind of resent the idea that there's no freedom of expression allowed in the View article. I don't want to be constrained like that. I think sometimes you have to poke the bear, and why can't we use the View article to do that? If there's an issue that comes up that we want to raise some awareness around, it can't always be language that's palatable and bland and so controlled that you completely lost the essence of the message. So that to me starts to fall short here. I feel like it feels stifling and it feels a little too controlled. I don't understand where this is coming from. This is new. This idea, this whole paragraph just came out of nowhere for me. I don't know why we're talking about this.
Oh, you must not have read the back and forth and the comments and the details.
But why do I have to do that? Why do
Well,
I
then
have to
make an informed decision
referee?
about what we're talking about.
But I'm telling you, in principle, I disagree with the idea of so much control.
I think if you'd read it, you would have understood it's not so much control, it's just the perceived message. It's still representing the municipality.
So who's
So I
going to
think
take
it would
the heat
help.
for that article? Wouldn't it be the person writing it? Wouldn't it be Councillor Abbott?
You could get the municipality into trouble. There was things that were taken from articles that could be perceived as insults in the past to MPs and MLAs that could damage us long term.
Pen, you're referring to what I wrote on Friday when you make those statements?
No, I said in the past.
You did.
I
you
said
just
in the
did.
past.
Okay.
Oh, I said in the past.
Sorry,
Please listen.
Sorry, I'll take my
Sorry.
sensitivities back.
Yeah,
Sorry,
I said
okay.
in the past. I'm just giving you examples, but I think to understand this, you do need to have read the whole email.
So we're not allowing people to set their own traps.
In a way, I mean, you can, well,
I think,
express
you know,
your
like,
opinion, it's just.
I don't want to be
Yeah,
a
it takes
censor
hours.
or an editor. It's not what I signed up for.
No.
But I do have a responsibility to look after the best interests of the municipality in all kinds of different ways. Legal, non-legal, political, all kinds of different ways that I have to look out for the best interests of the municipality. And that's all I'm trying to do. I'm not trying to stifle people's ability to say things. But, you know, it's not a newspaper. It's not the North Shore News. And if this was the North Shore, you wouldn't have this soapbox. Like, this is a soapbox. What do you want this soapbox to be? Do you want it to be you can say anything you want and everybody else has to just, you know, oh, that's kind of...
I don't think anyone's suggesting that, Peter.
No, but yeah, you are, because you're saying that you want to have the final say. So that means that if I say, I don't think this is in the best interest of the municipality, and you say, it's my piece, I'll say what I want, then if you overrule, if it's up to you, then that's the way it goes. And you know, if that's how you guys want to do it, that's fine.
Right,
It's up to you.
Hold on, Councillor Bain.
Well, to be quite candid, I had difficulty with section 5 as well, particularly the last sentence. And the one that caught me is the ultimately thing. Ultimately, the CAO is the editor and so on. I believe that anything somebody writes under their name, they're responsible for it, and they should have the last say in what is written under their name. But I think with that comes a responsibility to be responsible. It's a freedom that we have, a freedom of speech, and it's up to us to be responsible with it. But saying that, I can also say the pieces I put in, I appreciate your edits, and when you have come back and said that maybe you could put this a better way, or maybe this would be a better add-on to it, I agreed to them and appreciated it. I think your edits have been very helpful. But I'm not going to shy away from the idea that when I see your edits, I have to approve of it, or else it's not going to get printed. If I don't approve it, pull the letter or pull the piece. That was one side of it. The other side for me is, well, if I can use Norm's comment, terrible. Now and then you got to poke the bear to get some response, and sometimes I think not to be provocative, but you got to put out something sometimes that may not be what the people want to hear at a particular time, but it could precipitate a great conversation of feedback coming from the public, and I would not want to shy away from that. And, if I put out something that did that and it all came back blue at me, I think, well, now I know. I guess that's not where we should go. Valuable information, but I think we each have to be responsible for what we write and take constructive criticism. I appreciate yours, but I don't like the ultimately that the CIO can change everything without the author giving his okay on it. That's what it implies to me. I could be wrong, but I think the writer has to have the last say on it.
Well, I have to agree with everything that was said. It was that ultimate, and I know that you have very good judgment, but if this is a policy moving forward, there could be somebody different in your chair that might interpret this differently and use it as a veto power. So that makes me uncomfortable. And I do think that we're all here because we are responsible and we do make good choices. And your editing is very helpful in clarifying fact and whatnot, but it does come across as stifling what you want to say. And if I say something that's unpopular, I'm okay with that. I can take the heat. I don't need to be protected in that sense. Of course, if it's defamatory or going to be litigious, then clearly that, in that case, pull my article, just say, I refuse to print this, I'm not comfortable. And I would be more comfortable with that than having this sort of scenario. So, other than that, there has to be a certain level of control, of course, but it is really only that sentence that I disagree with.
What is your level of control?
Well,
Can't
that
have control
ultimately,
without, can't have control without control.
ultimately, if the CAO does not feel that this is an appropriate article, then it doesn't get printed.
Okay.
And say la vie.
Well, I mean, ultimately,
Then
it
you do
can come back to
ultimately
the next,
have
it can
control.
come back to the next meeting, and anybody who's got an issue can raise it at the next meeting, if it gets pulled or whatever. Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't disagree with the concept of each elected official being responsible for their own statements. That's not the issue. My concern is that if something is being said that is going to blow back in such a way that it can be harmful to, let's just say it could be harmful to staff. Let's say I'm anticipating that this is going to create all kinds of issues or an unfair characterization that someone is going to suffer the consequences of. Then I want to be in a position to protect staff. That's part of my role, and it's actually part of each of your roles, is to protect staff.
So
if I'm saying that, in my opinion, this will have that kind of a negative effect, what kind of response am I going to get from each of you?
Well, I think we're reasonable, and if that was a legitimate concern, then that is something that could have been taken care of in that first part of this paragraph. And maybe this just needs to be reworded in a different way to speak to the essence of that, and that ultimately an agreement between the author and the CAO needs to come to terms in order for an article to be published. And if it's truly, like, I think you have very good judgment. I'm talking about in the future, somebody coming in and just going, nah, don't like that. And then you're in a whole other area where you could completely be stifling what somebody's trying to get across.
So, would you then suggest that instead of publishing with the CAO as the final word, that if there can't be a resolution, if there are issues that cannot be resolved between the author and the CAO, who may not be me, that the article doesn't get published, and
maybe
it can be
for
discussed.
those reasons that you spoke of, that there could be potential fallout for staff. There could be, be a little bit more specific, other than like legal ramifications, safety issues.
Well, I wouldn't want to try
Outside
and
of-
think of every single potential,
Scenario,
and that's why I
no.
put best interest of the municipality, because all those things are.
But that is also then can be open to interpretation, I suppose. It does come across as a veto power.
Mhm.
And I don't think that's what you're going for.
Thank you, Councillor Coniff. It's along the lines of what I just wrote down. I think ultimately, and it's for the first time ever, that it's not just the mayor that's writing, and it's everybody here too. So having looked at what everybody has written, nobody has had anything particularly time sensitive. One could talk about Councillor Abbott and his trying to get on the wood burning apparatus ahead of the metro stuff, but at the end of the day, nothing has been that time critical. So if an article was pulled because of an impasse, it is not a hardship. And it can, however, I guess it ultimately come back to council in whatever format it does. I don't know. I don't even want to go there yet. So I think, CAO, would you be comfortable with an amendment to the final sentence of this item 5, that ultimately the CAO has the authority not to release content? If you're in an impasse, you're not going to solve it, and it'll come back in a different way.
I think that my suggestion would be to cross out the words "to edit all content," and then at the very end, add the words "to publish or not publish the article."
So the last one should be responsibility and discretionary authority in the best interest of the municipality to publish or not publish the article.
Correct.
It's kind of missing the negotiation part between the writer and yourself, though. That I think is an integral part.
Well, one presumes the objective is to reach accord,
Yeah.
so it's not to suggest that's not going to
Yeah,
happen.
there certainly could be words to the effect of the obligation to work with the author to.
To me, CAO, I mean, this, you do this all the time. I mean, I don't need wordsmithing for me, because I think you try and work very hard with everybody who submits.
How about this?
How about, okay?
Ultimately, the CAO, as editor of the Village Update, is entrusted with the responsibility to work with the author to refine the content in the best interest of the municipality, but may choose to publish or not publish the article in the event of an impasse.
In the event of a what?
Impasse?
All right.
Does that work?
Councillor Cunliffe, you fine with that? Can I consider that a motion?
Certainly.
Good. I will second. We'll go to discussion for a minute. Councillor Abbott, are you fine with the changes?
I'm certainly pleased with the progress and the changes. In the event that it happens, likewise, I hope and assume we're never going to get there. What is the step? Does it come back to council? Or can we just add that in?
It's what you do. I mean, actually, just as a technicality, wouldn't come in camera, would you write it in yourself? Or we would, the individual would write it in?
If you feel strongly enough about it, you just bring it up.
Yeah.
You just
This
email,
is what I
circulate an
want to
email
say, and I
saying,
don't know why I'm not going to say this. I'm just,
Yeah.
say, add it
that's where
to the
rubber hits
agenda.
road.
Yeah, so it'd just be, I mean, we don't need to, we. Do you want it added or not? I mean, the council member has an opportunity to do that, period.
Yeah. So I would just say, no, you just, that's what.
Just
you
send
do.
it in. Again, so, all right,
That's why I know what you expected.
Pardon me?
I kind of,
all right.
Sorry?
there's a lot
Okay,
of tussle over this.
just to quickly bring us back together, so there's no changes from what Councillor Cunliffe had seconded. We've had our discussion. Any more discussion?
Oh, sorry. Should there be something that identifies that that it is, each article is the opinions of the author? And, I mean, the objective is not to, I think, one of the things would be not to run counter to council policy and bylaws and so forth. But nevertheless, you may be writing on things that there is no council policy. So until such time as there is, it's your own personal opinion. So, I mean, some things may be
Wouldn't you
council
give
policy
Wouldn't you
though.
give guidance to the author that,
I think the idea of disclaimers is actually a good idea, because there may also be circumstances where we do go out and write an article that we've all had input to, and we've all decided on, in which case you take the disclaimer off and say, this is the view of council.
Sorry, what's your suggestion then?
I think you were asking, should there be a disclaimer if it's just coming from one person, and I think it should be. That just sounds to me like that's.
It's always going to come from one person
Well,
View of
one
one
of the
person.
thoughts I had, and where we were going to go, there might sometimes be something coming from one person speaking on behalf of council, because sometimes I think that might be a good thing to put out if we do into that consensus, in which case you wouldn't have the disclaimer. But if it is just one person, I think you should have the disclaimer. And you have the words somewhere else. Where do you put these words?
I don't know, that needs to be in here.
Alright.
but
I hate
I could
disclaimers.
just
No.
add that on
Yeah.
the thing, in the design of
I hate
the.
disclaimers.
Kind of.
Okay.
It's like, you buy something on TV and then the next 35 seconds.
That kind of disclaimer, okay.
Oh,
Yeah,
God.
no, we're not doing that kind
okay,
of
so
display.
we'll pioneer that piece as it comes in.
Okay, all
So,
right.
Sorry, well, I know where the disclaimer is. It's in your correspondence and policy. It's about the mayor writing before he gets to a council meeting. It's already written. You wrote it already. I knew there was one somewhere. The mayor writes before going to council meeting, when he can do that, he gets, there's a disclaimer.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
You can just use the same words. It means it hasn't gone in by council.
Yeah, all right.
you're changing some of the stuff, Peter?
No,
I think
No?
we did.
Good.
no.
Any last discussion? Call a motion, all in favor? Done. Thank you. All right, well, that was the pause that refreshed. All right, and that was on both the 1 and 2. Okay. Okay, the mayor, what's he talking about? All right. The first one. Just verbal on all these, glass case notice board at the general store. Mr. Doherty, who is representing the Strata, he and I have exchanged stuff back and forth. Substantially along the line, the Strata wants to know what we can do for them. Would we pretty it up? What would we do? Looking at the board, it's got an odds and ends inside it now, and the CAO may speak about that. But I think one of the comments that was made earlier is about the resources that are involved in this. If we wanted to put something in there, it seems to me much easier for us to just ask if we can put it in there. Likely it will, and the Strata or whoever at the store continues to run the board, if you will. And that way staff doesn't have to deal with the other people from the, let's see, there was 2 musical concerts in there, the Buy and Sell Lions Baby C, and I think there was something, a school one. So I don't think that's what we want our staff doing. So if there's agreement with this, and I will take nods of heads, then I would say to the Strata representative that if we could have access to post our stuff from time to time, that's all we'd like to do. Open to discussion, otherwise that's where I will go. Fine, fine, fine. That's set a nod, yes, no.
Sounds like you ended up there.
That's
Actually,
holding still, yes, works manager. Yep.
Do Public Works spruce it up?
Nope.
Okay.
I mean, other than Windexing the board, I really can't see much in there.
Well, the cork is in pretty bad shape.
Well, I saw it was crumbly on the bottom,
Yeah.
but I just thought it just needed to be
Alright.
vacuumed up.
Is that a-
wiped out.
Is that a,
Probably
Cork itself needs to be
just put a new
replaced?
piece of cork
is that a
in.
generous offer you're
Yeah.
giving me as a negotiating
Yeah.
ploy? Okay, thank you. Cork it is. Limiting our improvements to cork.
And a bit more.
Okay, well, let's just say yes, we'll fix it up for
We'll
them.
offer to.
We'll
Yes, we
offer
can.
to. Okay, so
Offer
I have
Offer to
my,
cork it?
just bite it. Well, we're gonna get out of here before 11 tonight. Okay, so I've got my marching orders on the glass case notice thing, which, part of the things, I brought this up because it's come forward before, is the feedback box at the general store, which if you haven't seen it, it wouldn't be surprising if you didn't, because it's a tiny little thing inside the door. And I think it was pioneered by Councillor Abbott in the use of the wood-burning apparatus, and some of the responses were there relative to the apparatus, and there was other stuff that was not relative to the survey he was doing. So my personal thought was that if we were going to do this, we would do it bigger and make it locked and give it a higher profile. But I don't think there's any budget for any of that right now, nor do I think we have the staff and manpower to welcome people to use it and not necessarily respond, because my question would be, is it the highest and best use of staff's time? So, to my colleagues, yes.
Well, it seems to me we should iron out what our communication policy is before we keep doing things like this yet. Maybe just a bit of a gap, and if it turns out that's the way people want, and fine, but it seems appropriate.
So stand down until we see the survey,
Yeah.
okay?
Agreed.
Councillor Cunliffe, you're there, Barnier? Fine, good, and we'll stand down on that period. Okay, thank you. MLA and MP meetings, which is telephone meetings. They're both in session right now, so I've, for the MLA Sturdy, I hopefully will touch base with them this week. MP Goldsmith Jones, I'm talking to her for 10 minutes on Friday morning. The thread is this: it's just to keep pressing the flesh. We need them to do what they can to further our aim here in our 2 outstanding grants. I would also ask where's the release of the next bunch of grants, because we're sitting here. I will probably mention to them that Minister Robinson's people have written back and basically asked us to stand down and not push too hard, if I can interpret that, and seek their advice and read of the tea leaves on that. My experience at the Metro meetings is that Minister Robinson is a force to be reckoned with, and I don't propose to get on her wrong side. So that said, I can't just sit and do nothing when we've got our grants out there. Any questions on that?
I'm not sure I understand where you, what is your final decision? What is the next step?
I'm going to seek their advice on how we further our cause a little bit, even if it's an inch or two. TransLink meetings. This is the second meeting that we have had with TransLink. And this would be the four smaller communities. It's going to be somewhat vague in my discussion on this because some of the items that were talked about have not gone to the TransLink board yet for approval. But specific to that, not having approval yet, other municipalities have got major road network funding available to them at other different funding opportunities. An example of one is that we have is our stairs, the concrete ones that will come up. So the...
Can I ask you to pause for just a second?
Yep.
I'm just wondering whether you're going to be going somewhere that perhaps should be in a closed meeting.
I'm going to make sure I stop before I go there.
Okay.
Okay. So let's just say that, thank you for that, because I've been watching my P's and Q's, that subject to the TransLink executive doing some work to consider some proposals we've made, there may be a change and a greater opportunity for us. That was pretty vague. Here is the good news. Not to commit to this, and I can almost count Councillor Cunliffe coming over to hug me. They have agreed to look at Friday and Saturday night service on the bus, and that's part of the mayor's 10-year vision, so they've accelerated that to now.
So Friday and Saturday if later?
Yes.
Excellent. Anything earlier?
Why don't you email what
Saturday and Sundays earlier.
why don't you email me what would be
Would it be an ideal schedule?
your contribution? Yes, well, I've already given them my bird's eye view of what I think, as Councillor Abbott does, the commuter transit, which is dismal here.
Mhm.
Dismal outgoing and dismal inbound because you have to leave very early and not everybody is in an executive position and able to do that, to make it home at 5:30 or 6:30. There we go. Okay.
Can I just say one thing? I've been talking to Councillor Whistler, and there is discussion of doing a sea to sky corridor kind of transportation link. She had mentioned Lions Bay to LA Sturdy. He seems to think that we're well covered under TransLink. So I'm going to be speaking with her and just finding out more information about that, and I will keep you posted on that.
And I will post all of you, either when you read it in the village update, if it makes it to that. I have seen confidential information about another municipality with what it actually costs for TransLink to run the stuff and what the patronage is per season and how many Compass card holders and stuff like that. So it's data they have that we can do as part of our stuff too. So I think it goes in line with what you're saying. So when I see it, you'll see it too.
All right. And
Next,
thank you.
okay, next one, which is a twofer, the Events Committee and Volunteer Week. And I spoke with the chair of the Events Committee relative to my mandate given to me last meeting on the Canada Day celebration. So more or less, I don't have their timetable in front of me, but for the sake of argument, let's say their normal events would start at 7. CFO Rook advises me we have a small grant for a cake, and the events committee's plan is to make it, I'll use my term, family day event. You bring your dinner, you come to the beach, there'll be live music, and then there'll be fireworks at 9:30. They have agreed that we can be at the front end of this, and I would propose that we, and this is part of the discussion, is that certainly for this year we consider doing our 2 student awards and our 2 citizen awards at that time. I put my own spin to this. And in the time that I've been going for the last 7 or 8 years, the students attend about half the time, and the recipients of the citizen awards are not there a quarter of the time. So I would let my colleagues speak on this one, but I would see that perhaps in the future we have the student awards, have them come to chambers with their parents. We do the photo op, and they get the picture and the village update, and it's probably something, and they get their check, I guess, if that's what we're doing, I don't know. And it might be a little more streamlined for them rather than turning up like Canada Day when they really didn't want to be there anyhow. It's just my personal view. So I would see that as either we bring them in, and I think Councillor Evans told me that in terms of where we do the selection and the school qualification thing, it all kind of works out. For the citizen awards, I'm thinking for next year we could put that in volunteer week. I don't think there's a magic to Canada Day other than it always was there. So Councillor Cunliffe, you are the queen of volunteer week. Does that resonate with you?
Seems like a great idea, and maybe we'll
Okay.
even get more people out.
Perfect. And Councillor Abbott on the students, we've got the stage this time, or we can not. What's your thinking?
This time I'm happy we'll do as you suggested. I do have one more committee meeting later in the year. We're going to discuss what we want things to look like next year. I'll take it to that meeting.
Perfect.
And I've been led to believe there's actually an award ceremony at the school, which the students get announced, and I need to get some details on that, maybe if some of the staff knows, I'm not sure.
I think it's at the graduation, and it's
Graduation?
announced when they graduate,
Yes.
and,
That they're a
yeah.
recipient of
Yes.
this.
And do we normally have someone present, or
We
suggest that
can.
we do?
Could
the
you ask
council has
former Mayor
always
Burr
gone.
if what, maybe, I don't know if he went.
I can find out one of the committee
Okay.
members that we
Oh,
do
they'll
for
go.
20
Okay.
years.
Maybe it's somebody
I
else.
just didn't
Okay.
ask the question.
So you've got stuff to do. So that concludes my piece on those two items, and has everybody got a good vibe for those two things? I'll take silence as yes. Well, considering the fist fight we just went through, out comes the calendar. Oh joy, look at a whole month with nobody other than Councillor Barmy already. June is open if anybody wants to do anything. I'm not suggesting June and July are the opportunities. Anybody want to pick another one? And don't feel you have to. The mayor's not writing all that frequently. He's got nothing good to say.
I'll get back to you with some thought.
Okay, I think
tell you what dates
Councillor
are-
Barmayer has got June the 14th. And I think other than that, June and July are wide open. Okay? Think about it, okay? Well, we're going to be meeting again next Tuesday, so we'll be asking the same question then. Okay, that takes care of that, which leads us to committees, which I think there are none. Emergency services, none. Resolutions. Resolution to change, item 9A, resolution to change council meeting dates, that the regular council meeting of May 21st, 2019 be rescheduled to May 14, next Tuesday, 2019.
The reason for requesting this is to get the fees bylaw and the bylaw enforcement officer bylaw to a lesser extent passed before the May long weekend, and particularly the fees bylaw because that's when the meters go in. So those changes need to be done. The additional benefit may be that we then have 3 weeks before the next council meeting in early June to keep going on stuff that we're working on. So may result in more production and things coming forward at that time.
Good, I'll put forward the
It's gonna be a pretty
motion.
long weekend.
Motion, second, thank you. Any discussion?
Is it anticipated that the next meeting will be a shorter one?
Well, there won't be any Bill Cox
You wanna
there.
you want to go scissors rock or what?
I should have put at 7 p.m. on this resolution, but just to be clear, but that's the regular meeting time.
Okay, well, we know what the start time will be. All right, no more discussion, all in favor? Good, unanimous, thank you. All right. Okay, we're powering along here. Nothing like a bunch of bylaws. So, I believe this would be, shall I? Thank you. Right, there it is in black and white, starting on page 95. So, bylaws, the 2019 the 2023 five-year financial plan bylaw number 560, 2019. Adoption that the 2019-2023 five-year financial plan bylaw number 560, 2019 be adopted. I have a motion. Second, this is last reading. Any discussion? All in favor? Adopted. Tax rates, bylaw number 561, 2019. This is the adoption that tax rates, bylaw number 561, 2019 be adopted. Can I have a motion? Thank you. A second, thank you. Any discussion? Here we are on page 101. 103, if you'd like to see the thing, final reading, going, gone. All in favor? Gone. Thank you. The fees bylaw. That fees bylaw number 497, 2016, amendment bylaw number 563, 2019, be introduced and given 3 readings. And that.
And again, those are the rate changes on the meters, and also adding in that a non-resident volunteer member of a Lions Bay committee may also receive a parking permit.
All right. Motion, thank you. Second, any discussion? Yes? Yes?
The non-resident volunteer member of the committee, need for that, huh?
There are some families that come from out of the village and attend school, and do then volunteer on the events committee and other committees, so therefore they should probably be able to park somewhere.
Okay.
I can
Hasn't
see
come
this
up
is-
often, but a couple times recently. so-
Occasionally it would come up.
You knew that just off the top of your head?
Yeah, I
Wow,
can think of
okay.
enough people that would apply to, for sure.
Okay. And then one of the, probably not material to this, when we change the Lions Bay Beach Park is not exempt for criminal homes?
That's how it's been for the last 2 years. This is year 3 for
Since
the
meters.
meters. Yeah, because the idea is to provide somewhere for visitors to park, whereas residents can park on the street with their permits. So,
So a couple of years ago we made the change.
pardon me?
You said a couple of years ago we made the change?
Since we've had meters.
Since we've only had meters for two years.
Oh.
So
Big-
this is
There's a
year
big
3.
sign right by the meter.
Yeah, who reads signs when you think you've got
Well-
entitlement, right? I don't think they'd take it though.
We have, you know,
Put those
in
glasses
the,
back on.
In the parking notices in the village update, when it's, you know, we, coming into that season, we always make sure that we remind people that.
I just assumed the rules I was used to up in Sunset followed everywhere, but okay.
All right. Any other questions? Yes?
I don't want to hold the thing up on this one, but if we approve this, can we have a look at Schedule 7 for filming? I know it's to be reviewed with filming policy, but it struck me, fire rescue services billing out for filming at $100 an hour? That is extremely low.
Yeah, that would definitely be reviewed.
Yeah, when I was last working, which seems like ages ago, to get a fire crew out, one single pumper ranged between $250 and $350 an hour. If you wanted a ladder truck, it was well over $500 an hour.
Mm.
And I would say 16 years later, I would say $350 to $500 an hour is probably more in line with it when you look at the valuable equipment we're putting on
Mhm.
up for rent.
Yeah, I have a vague recollection of a figure in the 400s when I did something for the SLRD
Yeah, that'd be more
at Britannia
appropriate.
Beach, where they go out for that kind of stuff on a regular basis.
Yeah.
So there's a schedule that that we used for the
One truck, one
bylaw.
staff?
No, it usually comes with a crew.
How big is the crew?
Four usually. That's the standard size. Bigger communities will have larger crews, then they can't split up a crew. But this is usually an overtime thing, where you take a vehicle out of service and put it there for their purpose. And then it comes stocked with about 4 members on it. In case, it's only used if the film is using live fire of some sort. But yeah, you've got a fully trained crew and a very expensive piece of apparatus there. It's $100 an hour is giving it away.
Yeah.
That's subsidized.
Yep, I agree.
Okay, thank you.
It's a future item. Good. Any other questions? Right, call a motion, 3 readings, all in favor? Yes, done. Brings us to a personal favorite. Bylaw enforcement officer, bylaw enforcement officer, bylaw number 506, 2016, amendment bylaw number 562, 2019 be introduced and given 3 readings. And there it is on page 129. I'll put for the motion. Can I have a second before we go to discussion? Thank you. Discussion. Thank you. Staff. Very imaginative idea.
We're adding public works staff as bylaw enforcement officers, or authorized under the bylaw to issue enforcement orders, tickets, etc.
Perfect. And is there any training that goes with this, or rather than?
There will be training for the initial rollout, so we can issue tickets, so they're comfortable issuing tickets. And then staff will, on an annual basis, take the bylaw officer training. So one person will go this year, one person the next year, one person the year after that. Till they've had their training.
So we're going to have one roving person this year.
No, all of them will be able to, I shouldn't say all of them. There are certain staff that have dedicated duties that won't allow them to issue tickets, but there are other staff that can issue tickets.
Okay.
And will, just caveat that we do have other work that we need to do in a timely fashion, and this isn't meant to have staff pulled off work to go. Where it's feasible and possible, it provides more flexibility.
Just to educate me, if I'm parking at a place I shouldn't be parking, and my vehicle is unattended, is this something where staff takes a picture of the thing, writes a ticket, or that is the deal, and then under the windshield wiper and off she goes to?
Correct.
Good. Okay. All right. Any Councilor Evans?
Question, so this only happens during office hours?
Correct. Normal working hours.
And is the focus parking tickets, or is this other
Anybody?
things?
It'll be the bylaws that we have in the village,
So then,
noise.
off-season, we will have actual
Yep.
ability to issue tickets.
During working hours.
It could include, for example, breaches of the water conservation bylaw. You know, where if we're at level 1 or 2 and somebody's doing something they shouldn't, then, you know, generally we issue warnings first, but, you know, this summer we're going to be pretty vigilant about ensuring that people are adhering to whatever level of conservation we're at, given that we're operating on a tank 1/4 the size of what we normally have.
Okay. But these people, there'll be no direct access for these people to come through the normal channels if someone wants to make a complaint about a breach of bylaw, that'll come through the normal channels.
Yeah, office, or they can fill out the bylaw complaint form that's on the website.
Yeah.
There's lots of really good information there. Lots of really good information on the website about bylaw complaints. It should be read before someone sends in a bylaw complaint. Really helpful.
You can never get enough information on bylaw infractions. All right, any other discussion? Call a motion, all in favor? 3 readings, good, done. Thank you for that imaginative piece. And who came early to school so he was ready for correspondence?
Because he was out late last night.
I was. Okay, correspondence. The first letter we got was from Legislative Services letting us know that Richard Walton was endorsed as the designate for the North Shore. That's just information. The next letter comes from an MP, Conservative MP. I would suggest we probably need to do some research before we respond, so there's no reply.
I'm talking to her on Friday, so I think we're covered.
Sure. G3, gas tax. I think this is just letting us know we were going to get a big bucket of money. I'm not sure if we want to say thank you.
Oh,
Yes, this is what the
Sorry.
change in the budget was between the second and third reading. It was
Okay.
there, we're getting double the amount we normally get just for this year.
So this is just for information, so
Yeah, it's
no
just
no
for
response.
information, yeah.
Sorry, wrong
It seems like
MP, wrong
great
MP on
news,
the other
so-
one. This is the one I'm talking to, so I'll say thank you.
Okay. National Missing Children's Month, this is really more of a, I look at this as a question to council, whether we actually want to proclaim May as Missing Children's Month, and May 25th as Missing Children's Day. So that is essentially the ask from
Child Fund BC.
Child Find BC, yeah.
In the past, we have not. Anybody want to make an exception?
I think it's a good cause, but I just find proclamations useless. I don't think of anybody other than elected people really paying
That's
attention.
substantially why we haven't done it in the past. Nobody have a burning desire? Nope. Going? No response, thank you.
Continued widening of the Trans-Canada Highway, so this is coming from
Abbotsford.
City of Abbotsford. I really don't see why we would object. I guess this is something that as a member of,
Not them, they're not Metro, they're out there, so they're just going
In
solo.
favor of it.
so they're just letting us know.
Yep.
Thank you. About time.
Same with the criminal justice reform. I don't know that that has any bearing on us directly. I mean, it really just is another piece of information. Am I reading that right?
Yep.
Yeah. UBC 2018 asset management planning. Is this a thank you because we want a
Yeah,
grant?
thank you for spending the money.
No, it's actually acknowledging the final report for the
Mm.
first grant that I filled out, and we finally got our money.
Okay.
So it's acknowledging that we're getting 50% of
Okay,
our
so do
money.
we follow up on that and say
Nope.
thanks, or we don't?
Nope,
for the-
it's just literally a notification that it's coming, so I keep my eyes
Okay.
open for it.
So this is, sorry, this is the next one?
No, this is the one that we,
The one we just had, okay.
yeah, here we go. You have to do it all, and then you could do a final report, and then
Gotcha.
they'll give you the money. So it's acknowledging they've accepted my report, and we will get a 50%.
Thank you.
Econ Board of Directors designate response. I don't think we need to reply here. Next one is small business property assessment and taxation letter. This, I guess, is just for information. I don't know that there's anything.
So I see it,
Yeah.
It's actually quite a lengthy
Yeah.
piece. It was about 38 or 40 pages that we chose not to add to the agenda. That's why there's a little link there
Yeah.
that you can click on and go directly to their website, where you can go through the whole package. But basically, the city is looking for support, I think, in terms of the changes to the way in which business properties are assessed by the province or by BC assessment. So the concern is that they're driving small businesses out of business and want to see changes. We don't have the same scope of issues here, so.
Resident correspondence. We have a letter from Carl Burr. And I guess the question to council is, are we continuing on this effort? So, are we continuing to advocate for average speed over distance? Have we assigned someone? Are we gonna continue on with this?
Can I speak?
Yeah.
So I think everything in Carl's email is all agreeable, other than I don't necessarily agree that weather information has no effect on speed. But essentially he's asking us to respond to the letter that we got from, it wasn't really a letter, it was a notification that we got as to the official response from
Yep.
from the province to the UBCM resolution regarding average speed over distance. And as he says, they really just talk about red light cameras and what they're doing in terms of other initiatives, and not really answering the question. Although I guess one could say they're answering the question by saying this is what we're doing, we're not doing what you're wanting us to do or what you've asked us to do. So, on the one hand, you know, council's current policy as of January, I think it was, when it was amended, includes still advocating and supporting average speed over distance. So I think it's worthwhile to send a letter to the minister indicating that we don't really think that they've addressed the issue, and inviting him to, or her, it's her, isn't it? Claire Trevina, to respond specifically to the suggestion that it be trialed in Lions Bay if they like. It just so happened that today, when I looked at this,
Yeah, it was on the news.
there's a May 7th thing on red light cameras at high-risk intersections coming into.
25 of them.
So they've launched their initiative. There was some links to some older materials indicating that Lions Bay, amongst others, were pushing for it here. One of those was from the Transportation Minister in Scotland, who cited some very supportive statistics and so forth. So, you know, one of the comments that I took out of this was the initial implementation of it in Scotland. They had the predictable blowback and the, you know, really not politically friendly, but second time around when they put it on the next major highway, it was just, nobody complained, everybody got it, they understood how beneficial it was, and that it worked. So, you know, one aspect of writing a letter could be that the province be invited to just trial it here, because, you know, there's probably going to be political blowback, and it's not going to be, so why not try it on Lions Bay? We don't mind. And you know, if it doesn't work out, then, you know. Anyways, I think it's worthwhile to.
You too. Peter, can you write that for me? Can you write that for me?
Yeah.
Thank
So I
you.
think the other key note that I'm sure you won't miss it, but Carl's putting out is their solutions to issues have nothing to do with our circumstance,
Mhm.
right? And that was the key point. You didn't address our circumstance at all.
All right, so Peter's going to do that, and I'll sign it. Thank you.
The next resident email is from David Waller with regard to taxation. You've already responded, so that's done. The next email is from Penny Nelson with regard to public consultation. I had responded, so I'd say that this particular one's closed. Betty Burrell wrote to us about more specifics on the outhouse concern, and so the question is, how do we respond?
Do you have quotes?
$250 for the first month, and $177 for every consecutive month after that, for an outhouse.
So that would be,
Serviced once a week. So cleaned out, toilet paper, everything.
and that would go where?
We would, sorry, sir. That would go at the top of Sunset, at the trailhead, the access road up to the lines, to the magnesia treatment plant.
Because they need to be able to pick it up with their hoist?
Yeah, and have a Vector truck come in and suck out.
Oh, right,
Yeah.
yeah.
So what, sorry, about $1,000 for the summer,
Yeah,
give or take.
yeah, you're better at math.
Do they come with meters?
Well, I mean, I think it was the free toilet paper that convinced me.
I used to walk that trail all the time. I'm not familiar with this issue. Is it really not someone's dog that she described it as having a nose to go find this stuff?
My dog
Oh,
would do the exact
my
same
dog would do
thing.
the same thing.
Yeah, like sniff
Loves
it out from 100 meters away, 200,
All right.
and
There they
doesn't
are.
distinguish.
Distinguish between the
Oh,
different
Well, he
types.
won't touch it, but he'll find it.
Oh, and mine will eat it.
Ugh.
Yeah, sorry. But,
All right.
Yeah, so this is a legitimate concern.
Okay, so.
My only other question is, are we doing the one trail, we're doing all trails, or where does it stop?
Well,
I think there's no indication, I don't think, that we've received, that I'm aware of, that there's an issue or a problem requiring this solution in other locations. I think this is something perhaps worth trying, and but I don't think it's something that we need to suddenly start going around and putting outhouses everywhere.
Yeah.
Can we, I mean, some kind of sign to indicate to hikers that we're providing this as a gesture to, you know, I don't know. No?
Ask for donations?
Not
Come on.
for donations, but I mean, we're spending.
Come on, Norm, went across the
taxpayers'
plate,
money.
Norm.
You know, it's an appeal to actually use it.
Can we use the word defecation?
I don't know. Are we done with this
Great
correspondence?
Okay, you know what, I think that this is an operational issue.
Yeah, we'll definitely have
So
signs.
you reply?
Good, thank you for replying, thank you, I look forward to,
We
I
will.
look forward to
Peter-
hearing how
Peter
many
will
times it's
reply.
been knocked over.
Sorry, what am I
Peter.
replying? So what's council's decision on this?
Yes,
I say we go for it.
yeah, so trial it, do whatever you want to do with it.
Okay, because it's a money issue, can you please make a resolution?
Okay, be it resolved up to $1,000 that a temporary washroom is put at the trailhead. Staff to make arrangements
So May to
and
August?
gauge
May to
success.
end of September? I don't know.
Yeah, probably suggest May to end of September.
To the end of September. Second, thank you. Please, no discussion. All in favor? Thank you.
The next one is Norm Barmeyer. I'm gonna have to actually
All right.
recuse myself from this one.
All right, go wash your hands in the other room and we'll be
Because it's,
done.
I'm requesting something.
Yep, I got it.
So I can't partake in the conversation.
Conflict of interest?
Conflict
is
of
that what you're
interest,
saying?
that's
Okay, yeah. All right.
Okay.
Where are you going?
Outside.
Oh, you can go in that room back
I was
there.
gonna say, I need some fresh air.
There we go. All right, the recommendation, this is on page 166 of 166. The third to last and the second to last paragraphs, get the gist of it. So that is the motion I'm putting, I wonder what time you'd like this noise boiler till, let's see.
10 PM sharp.
10.
10?
Yep,
Isn't that already in compliance?
first sentence.
10 p.m., boy. No wonder I don't go to his parties. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm?
Don't know what the bylaw says.
What is the noise bylaw hours?
I think it's 7, but I'm not 100% sure.
I think 8 o'clock is sort of the latest on
All right.
most stuff.
All right, I think, knowing this neighborhood as well as I do, I'm going to suggest we go to 11 here. Okay, and so on the vehicles, so I've offered him my driveway, so he probably will not need it, but I guess we should build this in.
He's still anticipating 5 to 10 vehicles that may not be accommodated through driveways.
My driveway's 225 feet long.
He's still anticipating.
Okay. All right, so the motion is that for the May 25th.
However, sorry, with respect to those vehicles that don't park in somebody's driveway and they're on the street, he can have as many free guest parking passes as he wants. So we just print them off for him. So we shouldn't really need to do anything about the
Okay,
parking.
so we'll let you guys deal with the
Just be
parking
the-
thingies.
Should just be the noise.
Thank you, so we'll just do the noise bylaw. Okay, so here's the motion that the noise bylaw for May the 25th in front of Councillor Barmeyer's home is relaxed from the hours of 7 to 11. Can I have a motion?
I have a question.
Second, any discussion?
Sure.
Yes?
It just occurred to me, too bad he's not here, but maybe he specifically wanted 10 PM as an excuse to get everybody out of the house.
Well, he doesn't have to tell everybody.
Just the
Do
reading.
it on council.
Yeah, well, you're gonna let the cat out of the bag because you'll be there probably.
I know, have you been invited?
I
No.
have a question or two.
Yep.
So, again, we're getting a lot of these requests, right? They all come from the same source. We've got another one that I thought I was expecting to see, but he said didn't
Could
make
be
the
next
deadline.
week.
Next week, so they're going to be weekly. We need a consistent response,
Yeah, I agree.
and
But
yeah.
I think he should be part of that conversation. So let's deal with this one. And then when the next one comes up, we might even have some ideas around it. But yeah, there's some things that the council needs to discuss
Yeah.
and have a consistent approach.
Okay.
Yeah.
And one of my reasons for that, at one stage it was mentioned about insurance of events, and that's why the village isn't involved, because they get the right insurance. And are we dragging ourselves into it by sanctioning them? So I think that's part of the discussion. Anyway,
So
So-
this isn't a house concert, this isn't
this
one of...
is, oh yes, this is one
Yeah,
of
it
today's
is.
house
Oh, I
concerts.
misunderstood when he was saying the artist, I thought he was,
I think
he
he
said it
just-
was
I
for the
think he
birthday
just-
party.
He just knows the
The
artist.
house concert thing.
Yep.
It's
Sorry, I
same-
misunderstood.
same
I thought it was just
industry that does
something
all
he
the
was,
house-
Okay.
okay, I thought it
So-
was him putting it on.
This is in your hands for the next one, and thank you. And thank you, Councillor Abbott. Any more questions? Going, gone? All in favor? Done. All right, Jamie, can you? All right. Thank you all for moving us along here.
Sorry,
Are you responding to him now, or is somebody responsible for writing the emails?
are we gonna let him know now? or
We're
will
going
we
to tell them
formally
as soon as
respond to
the
him
tape
after?
goes off.
Just for my notes, who's responding?
Oh, yeah, I think, yeah, tell them that.
Okay, you're good to go, and the staff's going to give you the parking passes if
Yeah, you just get
and
free.
in addition to my
Let's print them
driveway,
off and you use them. So you can
and
leave
your
just
noise
so
is
you
good to 11.
Oh, sweet, thanks so much, appreciate it.
Good, 11, Norm, thanks. Okay. And thank you for that correspondence section. New business? There being none. Public questions? There being none. Then closed council meeting. The proposed topics for discussion in the absence of the public are sale of 52 Brunswick Beach Road, personal information, police information, and awards. Okay. That the meeting be closed to the public on the basis of matters to be considered under the following sections of the community charter. 91. A part of a council meeting may be closed to the public if the subject matter being considered relates to or is one or more of the following. A, personal information about an identifiable individual who holds or is being considered for a position as an officer, employee, or agent of the municipality, or another position appointed by the municipality. B, personal information about an identifiable individual who is being considered for a municipal award or honor, or who has offered to provide a gift to the municipality on condition of anonymity. M, a matter that under another enactment is such that the public may be excluded from the meeting. I don't like that one. N, that the consideration of whether a council meeting should be closed under a provision of this subsection or subsection 2. All right. I have no questions on any of those. Hey, just CIO, ready to go?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Did you, sorry, I wasn't paying attention.
Oh, sorry.
Did you vote?
I mean,
Did you have a vote?
the topics.
Did you vote?
Well, actually, I'm trying to think. They're obvious to me. All in favor of
Okay.
going in? Thank you.
All in favor?
All right. Thank you, Sharon. Okay, we are coming from out of the closed section and moving back to the open at 11:15. Thank you, Shauna. And the following are the items that we are going to report out. Is that the number one, the sale price of 52 Brunswick Beach Road was $1,925,000. Item number two is that while council wanted to support the Eat Together event hosted by Tamara Ledger, will not proceed. Number 3, on the police action, I would advise off the RCMP's news released to us that on March 29th, 2019, charges were sworn against 2 men and 1 woman for 2 counts of possession for the purpose of trafficking and 1 count of possession of proceeds of crime. The trio are identified as Herman Haas, age 60, Andy Polo, age 58, and Colette Arsenault, age 50. The group appeared to be originally from Alberta, but have been connected to the Lower Mainland area for the past number of years. The 4th item being reported out is the Curly Stewart Memorial Award. The applicants were discussed and a selection was made. The last item to be reported out are the Citizen of the Year and Citizen of Distinction Awards. And as before, the applicants, the nominees were discussed and a selection was made. And that would be all for reporting out for the session. Can I have a motion to adjourn? Second, thanks, all in favor, good night everybody.